1 2 chuffy chuffy 1 2 check check chuffy chuffy 1 2. So it's just a hey you, and then you look at the thumbnail and you hover over it on your mobile phone, and I'm waving my hand and it says hey you. So you should want to watch that. That should be enough for you. That should pique your interest. If not the thumbnail and title. Christ, have I not done enough? Have I not done enough? Well, I'm only talking to people to whom that's worked, because if it didn't, you're not watching. So, but I have done enough. I've done enough. Look, I've done enough. You got the little chat window now. Your little chat window is now transparent. I'm the grave kipper. I'll do the introduction. I'll show you what we're doing. I'll show you what we're doing and I'll do the introduction. Right, web browser up there. Today's web browser. Today's calm and relaxing Nintendo music is selected by Mitari Mango. Mitari Mango, thank you very much, Mitari Mango, for selecting the calm and relaxing Nintendo music. I'm Ganji Kid. I'm a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, Twitch affiliate. I'm also Grave Kipper. Where's my big face? I'm also Grave Kipper. You can see my name down there. I'm also Scott. Hi, you're with Scott. This is Ganji Kid, my stream. It's midnight. It's always midnight. It's actually 14:19 GMT. And this is your right ear. And this is your left ear. And we're away. Having a little bit of a kilobyte struggle. Doing some hardware encoding, having a little bit of a kilobyte struggle. So if you chop and drop and drop, it's not major. It just has a little up and down every now and then. What we're doing today is There's No Place Like Home. This is our favourite, isn't it? This is our favourite homeschooler on the internet. Our favourite homeschooler. There's No Place Like Home is a YouTube channel that has 45,000 subscribers. I've got 50. I need more. If you're watching this, slam me a like. Hit me a subscribe. Share me, slam me a like. We're looking at them, and they've got more, like loads more views and subscribers than me, so I'm punching up. I sometimes feel like I'm punching down, though, because I feel like I'm a bit smarter than they are, because they've got some funny ideas. I'm not trying to say I'm a genius, not trying to be all like smarty pants. So I did watch the last, we've done one episode on this already, an introduction to their ideas, and I was a bit mean, I think. So what I'm going to do today is, when I'm critical, I'm going to do it in a West Midlands accent. Right, Bab, you got some funny ideas there. I don't know where you've been getting those funny ideas. Funny ideas. Hey, don't know where you've been getting those funny ideas. I'm going to try and do it in a because I think when I do it in a West Midlands accent, I come across better, and also I don't feel as mean. I mean, I was watching a TV show the other day with my mum, and it was one of those makeover. Like, she was watching it, I wasn't. I was just in the kitchen. But you know, when the telly's on, you're not watching it, but you're paying attention. You know it's on, and it was this makeover show. This lady had a makeover, and then they said, right, now we're going to show you to your family and your husband, and you know, see what their response to the makeover is. And they're like, oh wow, don't you look good? And the little young lad was only about 14. He saw his mom after she had a makeover, and he didn't react. And they said, but you know, look, doesn't she look good? And he was like, oh, I didn't realise that was my mom. Oh my god. And like, then he did a big reaction. He thought she was going to come in next. He thought that was like some other lady. And I was mean to him, but I did it in a Birmingham accent. I said, you know, Mom, he's not going to make Mastermind, is he? If he doesn't recognise his own mom with a bit of makeup on. It's only your own mom with a bit of slap, mate. It's only your own mom with a bit of slap. He's not going to get good GCSEs. So, you know, it sounded better when I did it like Birmingham accent, didn't it? It sounded better when I did it in my West Midlands accent. If I said it normally, he's not going to make Mastermind, is he? He can't even recognise his own mom. I get all like that, don't I? Get all ranty. That's not. In my mind, it's coming out more funny. But I end up. And you can see why, because some of these adverts, the reason I get a little bit ideas, web browsing, some of these ideas, this lady, she homeschools.
Do you guys see this app right?
Do you guys see this advert? It's in my face. Get it out of my face, you, with your rude. Here she is. She homeschools. And she's been telling us in the last episode that her main homeschooling strategy is let the kids do what they want, work towards a couple of maths tests, and for the first 6 weeks, we just sort of go out into town and they go riding about on their bikes and playing in the grass, and we learn. And then, you know, we work towards... we do Bible study every morning as well. Every morning we do Bible study. So coming up on our stream, we're going to do a bit of Bible study ourselves. We're going to find out who wrote the Bible. But I'm going to stick with this for a little bit. I want to just give it a difference. I was a bit mean to her last week. So I want to be less mean. I want to be more funny if I can. Because what worried me and made me a bit upset was she's homeschooling. She's got kids. And she's, in my opinion, doing them a disservice by not teaching them, the full facts and everything that's going on. And maybe not sending them to school is a bit of a negative for them. Especially when she's got some also really funny ideas. So we're going to go through her funny ideas today. We did some funny ideas before. We're going to start with her most recent question and narrative. If you search on because it's a mix of homeschool and conspiracy theory, her channel. If you search for narrative, because she's put this series together called Question the Narrative. If you just search for that, it will bring up Question the Narrative. And hopefully they'll be in order, won't they? A month ago, a year ago, 11 months ago. No, they're not in order. Thanks, YouTube. They're not in order. But these are all the ones that we want to have a little look at and a little think about that she's made. There's loads of them. And then after that, we want to get on to who wrote the Bible, just to directly, deal with her concerns. And then after that, we want to get on to the bigger Tartaria. Because some people are going to be coming to this video because it says Tartaria. And they're going to be like, what is this Tartaria? What's that? Tartaria is a strange conspiracy theory, right? I'll give you the Tartaria overview. I'm not down with this. I'm a bit of a debunker on this. This is Tartaria, or Tartar. Tartar was a large area that way back when, and we're talking like, old maps now, ye olde. 1754, this one, Tartar. So what they did in ye olde past is they didn't know everything. They're the Western Europeans. They didn't know everything. And they made these maps. They labelled these areas. And they basically said, from a long way back, probably pre-1400, from a long way back, they said, look, this whole area over there, that's the Tartars. It was Genghis Khan and the Mongols. Before that, it was whoever was leading it before that. After that, it's whoever's leading it after that. If you live there, you probably don't call yourself the Tartars. You know what I'm saying? Check. I just didn't do my sound check. Before that, it was whoever. Oh yeah, it's working. So if you live there, you don't call yourself the Tartars. You call yourself whatever you call yourself over the years. But if you're in the West, you don't know what's fully going. You just say, that's all the Tartars up there. They're the Tartars. That's what we did. That's why we've got the name. That's where it comes from. It's a bit of history, a little bit of history. It's not something up to date, so we don't really call anyone over there the Tartars anymore. But you do, if you just put in Tartar people into Google, like this, not the map now, I'm not looking for the map, just Tartar people. Look, there they are. These people who their ancestry dates back to those areas that we might have called the Tartars in the way. They may be, some of these people may call themselves the Tartars. I don't know, I'm not an expert on what they call themselves. They're the Volga Tartars. They're a sort of Siberian, Russian, Kazakhstan, that whole area people. You get me? That's what they are. So it's a thing that exists. So why is that a conspiracy theory? Right. The conspiracy theory is a sort of confusion. It's a sort of confusion. And what they believe in these conspiracy theories, certainly this lady, there's no place like home, certainly she believes this, is that this lady who's doing the homeschooling, remember? Our friend who's... God, loads of chuffing adverts, aren't there? Loads of chuffing adverts. Our friend who's homeschooling her children in America, she believes that what happened was that you had, you got BC and AD, before Christ and year of our Lord, the year of our Lord, in the year of God, so you have before and after Christ in the calendar. That's how we set it up. Back in Roman times, before Jesus, there was the Romans and whatever was going on before that. Loads of stuff was going on. Way back, 2700 BC, 7000 BC, there was stuff going on. So 7000, Jesus is born. We all generally sort of get, some people don't believe in Jesus these days and what have you, but generally we all sort of say, look, Jesus was born, and I'll put it in inverted commas if you want, if you're down with that. If you're not, if you believe in Jesus, fine, he was born. And then after that, you got the rest of time. We're in it. It's been 2,000 years now, hasn't it? BC, AD. And they kind of believe, if you read the Bible, that the last bit of the Bible says revelation. It was a revelation given to John, not John the Baptist. I've looked into this. Just said John. Doesn't specify which John. There's a few different Johns it could have been. Somebody wrote this like sort of fantastical vision of the future, apocalyptic vision of the future, where we get all these ideas like the four horsemen and stuff like that. And what's going to happen is Jesus is going to come back from the heavens. There's going to be all like disruption on earth. People are going to come back from the dead. We're going to live in this final age before the judgment. The rapture will happen. The bad people don't get taken up to heaven. The good people go to all that business. Yeah, all that business. And a lot of Christians are sort of waiting for that to happen, aren't they? Sort of waiting for Jesus to return. That's the whole concept. Not this one. Not this one. She's big on the Bible. This one is big on the Bible, but she also thinks the Bible's wrong. Or at least misinterpreted, because she thinks that Jesus has already come back. This whole tartar, what am I talking about these tartar people for? Because they're nothing to do with it. What am I talking about the Tartaria, the plate? That's nothing to do with it, really. Well, it's kind of something to do with it. What these people think, right? What these people think is, Bab, these people think, Bab, is that they think that Jesus came back on like year 1 AD, year 2 AD. He didn't spend a lot of time up in heaven. He came straight back. And that we had the apocalypse and all that right then, early doors. And that we've had 1,000 years of Jesus' rule. Now the devil's in charge. And we've had 200 and 300 years of the devil. And that because that doesn't add up with our calendars, because we're on 2022 now, aren't we? We're in 2022 years since Jesus now. And they're saying, but there's only been 1,200, sorry. I keep getting my numbers wrong, my thousands and my hundreds. I'm not very good with that. Thousands and hundreds. I know what I mean in my head, but I say it wrong sometimes. A bit like a numerical dyslexia for numbers of zeros on the end. Anyway, they're saying it's been 1,200 years. Jesus has done his rule. He's just chuffed off. Things are going wrong. And the part of that, right, so that's one aspect of it, with the biblical aspect, which we'll get into later. We're doing more of the, what would I call, more of the verifiable aspect of it. A part of that is there's been this great mudslide, they believe. This great mudslide, mud floods. And that what happened was that mud flooded the earth in about 1,200. Like, our calendar goes up, like, 0 to today. And they think that mud flooded the earth. And when it did, they inserted about, 700 years of history. Made it up, stuck it in there in our books, made it up. The devil did it, made it up, stuck it in the books. So we think we're on year 2nd millennium, 2,000 years since Jesus. But actually, we're only 1,000 years since Jesus. And there's been some fake history inserted. And at the time that they inserted it was during this time when the whole world was trashed with mud floods. These aren't pictures of the actual mud flood. This is interesting, though, because today I looked for pictures for our our thumbnail, and I found these interesting pictures of mudslides, which we're going to use maybe later to sort of talk about mud. But that's the concept. I've explained it quite straightforward and quick for you, hopefully. How many minutes have we done? 13 minutes. So hopefully in 13 minutes, I've managed to explain it quick enough and captivated your attention, because you're going to want to hear what this woman says, because she's the one spouting this stuff. Not only that, also homeschooling her children, which I worry about. So I'm punching up. Remember, she's got all the subscribers. I'm trying to be a bit funny and sort of debunk this silliness, have a bit of fun with you in a little episode on the old YouTube. You know how that goes. So let's crack on to it. We're going to use her most modern narrative resets. She's going to explain a bit more. We're going to use her most modern video. We're going to go back through them as we go. We're not just going to get it all done today. We've got the whole Bible to discover who wrote it and when. That's another episode in the future. And that's what we're doing today. So, calm and relaxing music, go. This advert could also go away. Sorry that I'm forcing you to sit through them. Skip that. Right, this is the video. I don't know what she's going to say. I haven't watched this one before. Let's crack on.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I'm back with another question the narrative video, and this time I'm revisiting the mudflood theory, and it's not going to be the last time that I'm checking it out because I think that it's extremely interesting. You might hear the little...
It's really interesting to me that she says things like I'm checking out and I'm questioning, so she doesn't stick her Bible study today you want to do a bit of Bible study quick? I'll do you a bit about, you know what? I'll do you a bit of, sorry, we've got a little chat comment with about the Bible. I'll do you a random Bible verse. I'll do a little Bible study. Because the thing about Bible study is people think it's this, right? People think Bible study is this. For him and through him and to him are all things. To whom be glory forever. Amen. Romans 11:36. So let's talk about that. What's it like to give to him and through him? And are all things glory to God? And let's talk about God. Bible study. It should be. Who are the Romans? Who wrote that? Who's come up with that? Where's that come from? Let's study it. Let's find out the history and the truth. Who are the Romans? That should be the study. Not what it says and what we think of what it says. But is it credible? Shouldn't it? So who wrote, we're doing it, we're just going to quickly do this because we had a little comment. Who wrote Romans Bible? And it's a separate book. All the books in the Bible are separate books that have been compiled later. So it's like, it wasn't like somebody wrote this part of the Bible and they put it in the Bible and now the Bible's got a new bit. It was like all over the world, people were writing what they thought, and then some years later someone said, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that as well. Let's put this together. Let's get that, an anthology of this. It's a bit like a YouTube channel, a collage of different ideas that build up over time. And then someone said, that's great. I can't understand it though because I speak a different language. And they said, all right, we'll give it to some monks and they'll change it all into your language. And we won't know if that's the same as what it originally said because we don't speak your language, but we'll assume the monks are doing the right thing. And then after that, people like King James is the most recent one, said, look, I'm not having this. I'm reorganizing this Bible so that it says the way I like it to say, based on my current political climate and method of ruling. So, like, you know, the people who are in charge of ruling the people adjusted what was said in the Bible. So Paul the Apostle, the Epistle to the Romans, or Letter to the Romans, often shortened to Romans, is the 6th book in the Testament. But biblical scholars agree it was composed by Paul to explain the salvation that's offered through Jesus Christ. So they kind of agree Paul wrote it. Who was Paul? He was one of Jesus's. Was he one of Jesus's mates? He was a Christian apostle. He was not one of the 12 apostles. No, he wasn't one of Jesus's mates. Okay, he wasn't there talking to Jesus. He didn't meet Jesus. He was a Pharisee. He participated in the persecution of Jesus, it says here. I mean, this is what Wikipedia is saying, and we could get into this more deeply. We're not doing that too deeply today, but here we go. So he might have met Jesus. He persecuted Jesus' friends. He was travelling. Paul was on the road to Damascus and he had that vision and he decided to turn to Jesus and become a friend of Jesus. Apparently 14 of the 27 books have traditionally been attributed to Paul. So varying degrees of argument about the remainder. So nobody really knows how many of these books Paul wrote and if he did write them. They argue about it. Interesting. So he was supposed to be a real person that lived back in the day and he saw what was going on and he wrote his letters. One person who decided the submission, why not take? Yeah, exactly. In comments, Angie said, who decided the submission? Why not take my manuscript? I can get the comments up if I do my big face. Look, down here. And if I go on web browser, I can also get the comments up, but there's no easy, good place to put them. Let's get them up. Let me get them up. I will get me some comments. Look. What are they even called? Why do I not know what they... Oh, it's chat. Chat window. That's it. Chat window. Where are you, chat window? Let's have you up on top. Come on, chat window. Where are you? It's a bit weird that I can't see the chat window. Yeah, got it. Right. Boom. Now we're all getting in on it. Right, so that's great that Paul wrote that. We're talking about other manuscripts. This is something interesting. It's in a different episode. I'm just going to quickly respond to the comments here and then get back to our favourite persons, homeschooling. Book of Enoch. This is a book that some people said should be in the Bible. Some people said it should be in the Bible. It's basically the same as all those other old books that went in the Bible, written by a... Who knows? Written by who knows? It's an ancient Hebrew apocalyptic religious text ascribed by tradition to Enoch, the great grandfather of Noah. But I haven't got proof of that. And people say, oh well, it should go in the Bible because it is like it's a right Bible one. When you read it, it reads like all those other Bible ones. It's great. Talks about all that stuff. Some people have put it in their Bibles. Some people have taken it out of the Bibles. The Book of Enoch. We'll talk about it another time. I'll just quickly tell you that it is complete rubbish. Because while some things are quite romantic and interesting, like the talk of angels and the descriptions of angels, and the talk of another way of looking at Noah's flood and things like that, other things are completely ridiculous. Like it describes the sun, because they didn't know, or Enoch didn't know about astronomy and what happens in astronomy. Enoch suggests that the sun rises out of a portal, and when it sets, it disappears into a portal, and that there are different portals all along the horizon that lead to different holes out the other end. And so he writes this huge chapter in this book that on the 7th day, the sun sets in the 5th portal of the 3rd movement to the east and rises in the 7th version of the western portal in the east. And he lists, it's like this psychotic rant about portals. And later on, we found out the sun didn't rise and set in portals. So it's rubbish. But if you want to ignore that bit, the rest of it sounds quite interesting and romantic when it talks about angels. So people pick and choose what they like, and Enoch's become a big thing. We'll talk about it another time. We'll do a video on it, but that's not for today. That's today's bit of Bible study. That's just a bit of context for the Bible. So when it says something like, for him and through him and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever, amen. I mean, far be it from me. I think if, great God, for example, the Muslim tradition of the Quran being the word of God direct, like spoken through a prophet and not been manipulated or changed over all these years, I can get with that a lot more, because like it's the same things as God said to the prophet, written down, never changed. That's the whole concept. You can argue about whether it was changed or not, but that's the concept. No one's arguing about that. We're saying this has been written by Paul, apparently, loads of long years ago. We debate the number of years, and since then we've translated, retranslated, and changed, and so we've just got to take this with a bit of a pinch of salt. It's Paul's idea. Paul wasn't big on Jesus. Paul thought Jesus was a load of rubbish, and then changed his mind. So he wasn't like the authority or nothing. But Paul says, for him and through him and all things will be glory forever, amen. So it's just like a little statement, isn't it? Take it or leave it. Anyway, that's our little bit of Bible study. Question the narrative. So you've got to question the narrative, haven't you? That's what she's saying, which is what surprises me, that she doesn't question the Bible narrative as in the same way. She's not made video on video of questioning the Bible narrative. Just takes that as accept, read, just done. Someone else has already questioned that for me. I'll just accept it. It'd be interesting to see someone who was really into Jesus and the Bible, who's doing Bible study every day, make some chuffing question the Bible narrative video. I'm not doing my voice. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, Bab, if she was questioning the narrative? She should be questioning the both narratives, shouldn't she? You can't have it both ways. You've got to question one narrative, you can question both narratives. You're the quizzical kind of person. I don't know why you take it on word of God that it's the word of God. See, it comes out much better when I do it in that voice, doesn't it? I don't seem like a mean arsehole bullying some lady. I seem much more like somebody having fun with some funny ideas, don't I?
Pitter patter of little feet in the background. That's because we just got a puppy, and he is very active, and he does not want to stay down in my bedroom while I make this video. So he's going to be up here wreaking havoc as I'm trying to record.
I love the way she introduces, this is the second video of hers that I've watched where she's introduced it with a non-sequitur about something else, where she's introduced the first bit. I do a lot of talking at the start of our streams. It's a bit of a double-edged sword for us, because you want to do a bit of talking to allow people to arrive in the stream, to give it time to build. We need more people, we need more views, we need more subs. Click like if you're watching, but if you're doing an edit, if you're doing it, if you're editing it, you can get rid of that bit off the start. You don't need it. And it also strikes me that she's got 3 kids and now a dog, and she can't find the time to make these videos. Who's looking after the kids? If the dog's going mad, if the dog hasn't got any discipline, if the dog's getting up and can't be told, who's looking after the kids? What's going on?
But life goes on, right?
Who's looking after the kids? If you can't get your dog to behave, how are you going to get your kids to behave?
So I get a lot of emails, and I'm very, very slowly trying to work my way through them. And as I was working through the emails, I found one that I thought was really interesting. Actually, excuse me, this one's not even an email. This was one of my comments. But yeah, the comments too, I'm trying to work through. And this one was actually from a video that I made
This is an interesting concept because it's not uncommon on YouTube for people to discuss comments on a video, but it's also quite common for you to just respond to them in the comments, isn't it? I like to take a comment and make a video out of it on the ASMR channel, and I like to just reference the comment on the edit at the start, but not do a big talky talk about it. But it's an interesting concept, so let's see what's being said. Reset, I'm going to read it for us quickly first, because I don't know if she's going to read it, but Reset 1, the flood. Reset 2, Armageddon. Reset 3, the end of the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. So we're now saying there was a great flood, that'll probably be Noah. Armageddon, the end of the world, as prophesied in Revelation. And after that, we've got 1,000 years reign of Jesus. They're the 1,000 years that we had. They suggest that the first 1,000 years of our history be AD, not the 7,000 before that, but AD. We did all the best stuff. We built cathedrals, so Jesus was doing it. And then after he went, that's the end of the world, I suppose, isn't it? We've done Armageddon. What? I don't know. So that's why they inserted some years into history to confuse you. We give much credit to those who work against God when we assume that it's them who control everything. We give too much credit to the too incorrectly spelled. Listen, Bab, if you're not going to punctuate your sentences, I'm not too heavy on the old punctuation on the internet, you know, because people might not be speaking English as their first language. Who am I to judge? Judge me, lest I be judged, lest you be judged, lest none of us be judged. So, I'm not going to be too mean about the spelling, punctuation and grammar, but it does do my little head in when I see two and two all spelled differently and the same and differently and in the wrong place at the wrong time. It makes me think you're not that smart. It makes me think, should I give much credence to your ideas when you can't get into your head whether it's two or two? Now listen, you could be dyslexic. Fine, you could be dyslexic and still be very smart. I get that. You could be dyslexic and be a very good cook. You could be dyslexic and be very good at fixing your car. But if you need to read the manual or the nearly swore then. Don't mind, maybe I can swear when I'm doing my accent. If you need to read the manual or the fucking recipe, you're not going to get it right, are you? You're going to need some help. Now that's accepted if you're dyslexic. You've got to accept that. I'm not saying you're not smart, am I? I'm not saying you're not smart. I'm just saying that you might not get everything right first time, and you can't read the books to find out. You can't get into all the history books. You can't have a look. So maybe that's a good start point, isn't it? If you're not looking at the history books, if you're not able to look at the history books, you're not looking into it and seeing what's going on, you're making up your own ideas. So we give too much credit to those who work against God when we assume everything, it's them who control everything. So what they're saying is, if you're assuming that the baddies are in charge, we're giving them a lot of credit here. Because, do I talk to my dog in this accent? Babies born right in the Armageddon. That's the trouble. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, some people were born in the age of Armageddon. I talk to my dog in all sorts of different accents, depending on the situation. But I talk to normal people like this because this is how we talk around here. So anyway, they suggest that we're giving too much credit to the people who are bad. The flood, cities under the water now. Armageddon, melted structures and mountains. End of Christ's reign. Mudflood buildings caused by soil liquefaction from the great earthquake after the war of Gog and Magog. That's the most recent one. This is all proven both in the scripture and comparing scripture to the world around us. Now, far be it from me to assert that scripture's not evidence or proof, but what we were looking at earlier is that we need more proof and evidence for the scripture. I don't know.
While ago, but it makes a lot of sense. So this is from Joshua, and
now I love the fact that when she reads that, to her it makes a lot of sense, because to me it doesn't. To me it states three different very strange ideas, and then it goes from that to state a different strange idea, and then it sort of clarifies the strange ideas a little bit, and it says it's proven. That don't make sense to me. You need subtitles. Okay, I'll have to talk normally. When I'm being really mean, will I try and slip into the... Because I'm afraid I'm honestly, in my heart, I'm afraid that I'm being mean to this woman and that she's not that smart. She's not figured this out. She's got some confusion, whatever's happened. And that instead of being mean to her, I should be kind to her, because I really, in my heart of hearts, would hope that the best circumstance, I don't think she's going to watch our videos, so I don't think she's going to be affected really, but the best circumstance in the world could be that she thinks differently through some sort of education, someone saying something that makes her think differently, and then she stops teaching her kids a load of rubbish and maybe allows them to go to school, because then they're going to benefit. I think she's lost, but I think maybe the kids could benefit. Let her have it. I don't want to be the person on the internet being mean to some lady that's, I'm saying I'm punching up because she's got more subscribers, but I also think I'm punching down because she's got funny ideas and confusions, and I feel like I'm able to critically think my way through this better. So me being mean to her means that the people like her and her are going to not like me. They're therefore going to switch off from everything I'm saying. And that's not the whole point, is it? I don't know. I don't know the best way to do it. And certainly for you watching at home... For you watching, I don't want you to think of me as some mean bully who comes on the internet to bully people. That's not my raison d'etre. So I've just explained what's in my heart, but I can't help it with the ideas. I have to go on the ideas are stupid. I'm saying that. The ideas are stupid. It makes me sound like she's stupid. See what I'm saying? I'm trying to be nice.
Said reset 1, the flood. Reset 2, Armageddon. Reset 3, the end of the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. We give too much credit to those who work against God.
She didn't pick up on the spelling, punctuation and grammar error there, did she? She didn't pick up on the wrong use of to. But it's fine for me to pick up on it. I'm not homeschooling. Oh, you're homeschooling people. Mark their homework.
When we assume that it's them.
How do you do homework if you're homeschooling? It's all homework. You can't take your homework home and do your homework. What the hell?
Who control everything. So if we go back to reset 1, the flood, that would be the cities underwater now. Reset 2 would be Armageddon, the melted structures and mountains.
Right, I'm just going to have to pause that for a second. Are there any cities? Let's just take this piece by piece. The flood, cities underwater now. Now, this is funny, right? We'll come back to my mud photos, but I wanted to show you this one quickly before we go any further, because this image, open image in a new tab. This image is from a modern building site, look. Modern building site. It was in a newspaper because the residents that live here, the people that live in these houses, well, they've only just moved in, and there's mud all up their houses because they haven't finished the building site properly. The builders have left it in this rubbishy state. They've got to finish the road, and that's the last bit. So you'll notice that in modern builds, they build all the houses first, and all this mud is piled up against them, look, because they've dug it out of this area. Maybe that's a load of hardcore rubbish, rubble dug out from the foundations of those houses, ready to use to lay a road. And at the end, they clear it all up and they go away, if they're good. If these people haven't, they're naughty. They're naughty. But that looks just like the mudslide photographs that we were looking at in the previous episode, don't they? Like, if I go Google... Oh, I want to keep those mudslide ones. If I go Google Tartaria mud flood, like that, you just put mud flood, that's the conspiracy, and it will come up with these images of these. They've got a few that they really like, and this one was one of them that was open image in a new tab. This one was one of them that was thrown at us in the last video. Oh, it's tiny. Why is it so tiny, you chuffer? Can't you have it, make it bigger? Open an image in a new tab. You know, big version, even smaller. Even smaller. It's on the top left. It's going to be difficult for me to show you what I mean if I can't physically show you. But it's on the top left, and it's an old black and white photo that was brought to us in her previous video, and it's got all this mud and dug up road and these buildings that look like they're municipal buildings, like an actual town in the background, but there's all mud, and they're suggesting that this town was flooded by mud. That's what they're suggesting. That's what they're suggesting. That's the idea here, that it was flooded by mud. This picture that's London after it got bombed in the war. So that's not been flooded by mud. All that bricks and stuff, rubble. That's not mud. That's bombed out buildings. But this picture is suggested to be flooded by mud. Now we can see, can't we? If you think that's flooded by mud, but what about what I just found? That same thing, isn't it? Same thing. So I've proved. She's saying that the mud is part of. She's saying the mud is one of these apocalyptic events, a reset event, a biblical reset event, and that after Jesus left us, 1,000 years. No, sorry, I've got that. I keep forgetting that we've had 700 years of history faked. After Jesus left us 200 years ago, the mud flood and the reset, and we're living post-reset. That's the idea. But look, I proved it. Same picture, just more modern. I proved it. So, good old me. Thanks for me. Thank me by subscribing to me and sharing the video and giving me a like. So that's the suggestion. Cities underwater, though, we wanted to find out now. So we know there's a mud flood, but apparently now there are cities underwater. Now, we do know, we don't want the futuristic ones, we want actual, real, ancient ones, if we can, please. We do know that there are places that are currently underwater. What? What the chuff? The whole world's been flooded then. That's probably what it is, isn't it? The whole world's been flooded. Could there be another explanation? Could there be another explanation? I'm not sure. Hello, Luke. How you doing? Could there be another explanation? If I do cities underwater, right, and I don't just look at the pictures, you know, bear in mind that we've got the advantage of being able to read the words as well. As the planet gets warmer, which cities could find themselves underwater as early as 2030? Oh my gosh. Look, all these places. Amsterdam. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? I haven't visited there yet. Iraq. We're not so worried about Iraq, are we? Not so worried about Iraq over here. We've already bombed the shovel out of them, haven't we? New Orleans, though, that's going to go under the water. We don't want that to go underwater. Venice, Italy, they won't mind. They've got boats. It's part of the charm. Ho Chi Minh City, we don't care about that. We bombed it. Oh, no, we do. We wanted to save it. And we bombed it. So, I don't know. We're confused about that. Kolkata, India, that's where my ancestry DNA comes from. Kolkata in India. Bangkok, Miami. Escucha Miami. Where the beat is on. Where the beat is on. Welcome to Miami. Get out, Miami, says Will Smith as he comes and slaps you. You'd never thought that, would you, when you listened to Will Smith doing that Miami song, that he was one day going to be a crying cucked slapper. Anyway, look, Bangkok, Thailand, in West Philadelphia, born and raised in the playgrounds where I spent most of my days. It's underwater now, up to my eyes. I go wading up to my thighs. Look, so they did find some weird stuff underwater in Japan. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And this is what I was going to go on to say is, look, the water's rising. The water's rising. And that's because global warming and all that, isn't it? And in the past, this is gonna blow your mind, right? Might not blow our minds, my tiny mind, right? It might not blow my tiny mind because I already sort of know this. But if you're into this conspiracy theory, this is going to blow your mind. But look, there are places in the world that have ended up underwater. What's going on? Why can't I scroll? Come on, you internet, you. Let me scroll. Where's me scroll? Where's me scroll? I'm not allowed to scroll. What? No thanks. Don't want that. Not if you're not going to let me scroll. No scrolling for me. Right. That's a shame. Can I go back? Yep. That's fine. Just another website. I'm just going to go on any of these websites. I'm not checking them verification and all that. It could be written by the Illuminati, couldn't it? But the Illuminati wouldn't ask me if I want cookies. They just force them on me. So bear that in mind. Forget Atlantis. 14 real cities that are completely underwater. So there are loads of places all around the world that are actually underwater. They were built quite close to the coastline, I imagine. And then due to tectonic activity being the shifting of the Earth's plates. You know that the Earth isn't one landmass, don't you? Like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you're into that conspiracy theory, the Tartaria conspiracy theory, tectonic plates, I'm sure you would have covered this in homeschooling, but the Earth is not one landmass, it's not one mass at all. All these different sections that don't look like sections to us, that include some water and some sea, they're all like tiles that move. And as one moves away from another, magma comes up, and it comes up and it creates land. And as one moves towards another, one of them crushes under the other one maybe, and it recycles the land as it goes under into the magma. And sometimes they come together and push up and form mountains. That's how everything is formed. That's geology. So that's the tectonic plate. So that happens and things end up underwater. The sea levels change. The physical, not just the ground, but the sea, everything is shifted. So, you know, if you've got a stress ball, it's like you give the stress ball a bit of a squeeze and then it changes as you let it go. You know, the Earth's constantly in flux. It's always shifting, these tectonic plates. So I'm glad we cleared that up. That's a very simple and reasonable explanation for why the sea changes. And we can chart this sea change because you'll notice that a lot of these underwater places are now underwater, and next to them is the land. So they're in the sea and next to them is the land. So if you could think back a bit, they used to be on the land themselves next to the sea, didn't they? So we can chart this gradual change by looking at the places that are underwater, comparing them around the world, seeing what kind of, this is an archaeological park here. So seeing what kind of archaeological findings we can deduce, and then putting together, and it turns out that a lot of these places were underwater in the past at similar times, and that the sea has risen around the world at the same sort of rate. Because you can't have the sea rising here and not over there, can you? So it's confirmed, sorted, confirmed, solved. I'm glad we managed to answer that, Bab. It's ironic that Will Smith's a slapper, not too different from his wife. Way! No, let's not be rude about the women. It's all right if the women want to sleep around these days. We're not sexist here. You can all be slappers. I don't know what Will Smith's wife's done. I've never met her. I didn't know anything about her until Will Smith slapped that man at the Oscars. I don't even know who he slapped. Apparently he's a comedian, but I've heard a few of his jokes and I didn't find any of them funny. So that's as far as I go with that. Right then, we found out that there are places that are underwater. It's actually quite explicable. Not inexplicable, but explicable. Explainable. We know why. We've got the science. We've done the proof. It's not that far flung. It's not that weird. We know it's not that weird. It's not that weird. I'm trying to do. I just feel Luke. Whenever I'm going to be mean to the lady, this homeschooling lady, when I'm going to be mean to her, I don't want to be mean to her and go. So I'm trying to do it in my West Midlands accent because I think it comes across much better.
And reset 3.
Oh, we got melted structures. Sorry, Armageddon, melted structures and mountains. I forgot that one. I mean. I don't think we're going to find many pictures of melted houses, are we? Unless they were made of chocolate. That one's been made of chocolate. Unbelievable. It's a melting house, specifically deliberately made of chocolate. I'm well impressed. I am well impressed. Oh, it's wax. I love it. What a cool and confusing piece of art. Melting wax building. Brilliant. That's for another day. But we don't have many images or examples of melted houses because there are none. There are none. So I'm gonna bounce over that one because I don't know how to approach melted structures and mountains. Wait, mountains. Are we saying melted mountains? They're not even spelt mountains wrong. It doesn't matter. The internet will fix that for me. Well, you're talking about melting ice caps. That's different, isn't it? Melted mountains. Oh, here we go. Look. How do we approach this? Mountains are melted brick buildings. Why? Why would you suggest that? I think what's happening here, maybe, and this is hard for me to get my head around. Like, I think maybe they're suggesting those lines. You see how there's like a sort of uniformity to the structure of the mountain when they've dug into it with this digger. The lines going up. Two reasons for that in this photo that I can just quickly, off the top of my head, kind of invent, because I'm not educated enough to know the facts. A bit like, and this is exactly like what they do with their funny conspiracy theories. So my one idea, right, is that the way they've carved it out, for whatever process they've used to remove this rock face here, because there's a digger in the picture, maybe that's caused this. Maybe they drill it and it falls away, or maybe they, you know, use some sort of machinery that leaves machine tool lines in the face. Maybe it's that. Another aspect could be that rock formation has, like, what am I trying to say? Like geological formation. You might think, oh, rocks are random. They're all random, aren't they? Like, you know, if you find the rocks on the floor, they've been washed by the sea and they've ended up smooth. They didn't end up smooth. They weren't off the mountain smooth. They had to go through the sea first and then get pushed back up. We talked about those tectonic shifts again. Some rocks form in, like, you know how crystals form in salt and it's got straight lines and structure. That's the word I'm looking for. Rocks form in... I'm looking for straight lines there, aren't I? What am I looking for? Parallel, horizontal, vertical lines. Vertical structure. You'd be surprised by this, but rocks form in... They have structure to their... their internal, maybe I'm looking for internal structure. Here's a good example of a picture. So... This chunk of halite shows how the microscopic cubic structure leads to flat fascias seen in larger crystals. That's a crystal. That's a crystal structure. This microscopic crystal structure of halite consists of sodium and chlorine atoms in a cubic arrangement. So where the atoms are arranged form that crystalline structure, yeah? You see what I'm saying? That's a rock. How do rocks form? Earth and space science. So similar thing, look. Coal and limestone have got different structures depending on how they're formed. You know, how those atoms end up forming together, different structural formations. Sedimentary rocks are rocks that have been pushed, like mud, that's been pushed together. So they form in one way. But there are other kinds of formation of rocks that don't form like that. For example, magma, hot molten lava, cools and forms rock. It's not compressed and crushed together. It's a form of cooling. So that forms certain structures. You know, like if you make ice or... what else can you cool to turn it into a solid? It doesn't happen all at once and it forms like structure as it cools. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it's not just sedimentary rock we've got out there. It's other types of rock that can form structures within their like atomic makeup. And then when you multiply that out, to like the formation of these bigger things, you can actually end up with like patterns and apparent structure forming in the wild, so to speak. So that's as far as my education on geology goes in terms of being able to categorically state what kind of rock and how it's formed in those straighter lines. But I am aware of naturally occurring straighter lines of rock. Like, we're looking at the actual rocks there themselves, you know, into the rocks. But when you put them together and create mountains and apparent structure in natural rock fascias, and I'm just randomizing my way through the internet here to try and find something that will look similar, but not the same picture as we first started with, because I want it to be a different and a reference, don't I? Maybe fascia is the wrong word because it's actually a building word, isn't it? Maybe I shouldn't be using the word. Maybe faces is a better word. What's this? 13 rock formations that look human-made. Let's have a look at that. Oh, absolutely. I want you to respect my privacy and rights. I do not want you to, you know, come and... Whatever it is that this does, I don't want it. So there's some interesting... They don't look human-made to me. They're obviously that shift like I was talking about in the tectonic plates. You can even see that one's on a funny diagonal because the tectonic plate has shifted it. Wave rock, that's interesting though. Looks cool, doesn't it? Looks cool. The Eye of the Sahara there. Thor's Hammer. This is from erosion. We know that that is rock that's left behind as other parts of it are eroded. So it ends up looking like that. Same thing here. Rock sites of Cappadocia. They look like melted, don't they? Ooh, they look like they could be that melted kind. Volcanic activity. So it literally was molten at one point. The Skull Rock is just nothing. It's interesting salt flats that have built up over time, isn't it? White rock formations composed of calcite, calcium, a different kind of mineral. But you see how the mineral builds up and it forms what we see from our perspective as kind of structural formations. But it's just a phenomenon of the mineral that it seems to form in that way because of its atomic structure. Devil's Post Pile, National Monument. That's getting much closer to what we're talking about. There we go. That's much closer. And in this, you can actually see both horizontal and vertical because over time the rock has fallen and changed. But it doesn't mean that it was formed in that way. It means it's changed into that formation. In geological terms, the rock formation of Devil's Post Pile in eastern California are relatively young. They formed less than 100,000 years ago when a lava flow cooled and cracked into multi-sided columns. Brilliant. So basaltic lava tends to form columns because it's rich in iron and magnesium. That'll be forming those crystalline structures within it. That'll lead to that, won't it? So there we go. We've got a bit of science. We can talk about it in scientific terms. We can get even deeper on that if you want for proofs and evidences. But that's it. That's it there, isn't it? That's it. Where's my original... Oh, I lost the original... What was it called? Melted Structures and Mountains, was it? So anyway, I don't have to go back to the original picture, do I? We know I've just busted them. Just... There we go. That found it. I didn't know before that it was basaltic lava, but now I do. And what worries me about this lady is that she could have done the same thing and then taught her children the truth. But instead, she's gone off on this.
End of Christ's reign. Mud flood buildings caused by soil liquefaction from the great earthquake after the War of Gog and Magog.
Oh my God. So yeah, 3,000 miles of the Rocky Mountain range is just... Exactly. Why would you assume that it's the Rocky Mountains are naturally occurring when you could assume that they're just melted buildings from the Great Reset? It makes more sense, doesn't it, to have melted reset? Going back to this mudslide picture that I keep bringing up by accident because I just want to get this out of the way and say it, so I've said it now and then we can move on. This is an image of an actual more recent mudslide, and you can see that the mud has slid into this house, but not into the houses beyond it. Not into the houses beyond it, because mud doesn't flow that well, does it? It requires water to carry it. Water to carry it, and if you know about mudslides, you'll know that they can apparently, you know, destroy and cover and then stop. They can go on, but sometimes they can stop, can't they? So for a mudslide to cover the entire Earth, as they suggest, or the extent of these places, like they suggest, it would have to be some kind of... Like, when people say biblical weather, they don't just mean, like, reference to the Bible. They mean, like, you know, extraordinarily big and... Wow, because it'd have to be. These individual photos look terrible, but just down the road is where the mud stops. And these houses are built up in the hills, so they're, you know, in the danger zones. Look, there's a mudslide. Part of that's dropped away, but it hasn't taken everything, and the whole mountain hasn't gone, has it? It's just a little part of it. So sometimes they can be quite destructive and quite, you know, certainly in other areas where you get more mud and rainfall, like monsoon areas, they can be that. But they don't then spill out to the rest of the world and, like, the entire country. They're normally localised in mountainous areas or follow some sort of earthquake or tsunami or something like that. But if you get a wider angle view of it, you'll see that, there's a good example, there's a mudslide in an urban area. But you'll also see that just down the street there to our right, it kind of peters out. And it's not all up to the windows, and it's not all up to the roofs. So right next door to a place that's covered in mudslide will be a place that's kind of not. But they're suggesting that's not the case. They're saying, like, everything has been covered. Which, how can you get that much mud? Where does it all come from? So I can bin that one off now. Bin that picture off. This might come pertinent later if we can get through her video. I've only done 1 minute of her video, and we've done 50 minutes of our debunk. So I'm going to have to let her play for a little bit.
This is all proven both in Scripture and comparing Scripture to the world around us. Now,
It all makes sense now, doesn't it? Look, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to debunk the soil liquefaction from the Great Earth. The Great War of Gog and Magog. I can't. I've just done so much now. I've done 50 minutes. I'm going to have to let her run for a bit and then do some more. But we'll do the Great War of Gog and Magog another time, maybe. But I think we can all safely assume that no amount of Great War could liquefy the soil. And if it did liquefy the soil, it wouldn't be that it then flowed around the world like some kind of soil river, covering everything, rising. The liquefaction would mean it would fall, wouldn't it? The soil level would totally fall, because liquid moves to the lowest point. That's why that mud slides. So there'd be no soil on any high up places. It would all totally fall. And what they're saying is, like, you know, if you get sand, I don't know if you know this. So we're learning some stuff today, but liquefaction of sand via sound. If you use sound pulsed through sand, right, you can liquefy through vibration. This is good. This one's a good example. Jesus, why would you put music on like that? Look, they're building their houses on the sand. Now, the wise man told us to build our houses on the rock, didn't he? Do you remember? God, the wise man said, build your house on the sand. These people, no, don't build your, they're building on sand. Look, building on sand, so that's a problem. And what happens is you have an earthquake, and the vibrations, are they going to do it? How are they going to do it? They're just doing a small earthquake. I want to see a quicker version. Now it appears to be happening. I think they've actually put some water in there as well, to be fair. Or maybe there's water underneath the sand. So what happens is when you vibrate sand, it becomes like a liquid, because all those little particles of sand are moving, and you could move through, like, I should be able to get a much better example of that. Sand, liquid, pressure. Should be able to get a much better example of that, really. Yeah, look, solid sand, this will be a good one. It will shake much faster. See, you can't even see it shaking, right? It's got funny noise on it. What they're doing there is they're pumping air through the sand, yeah? And that pumping of air is different from the vibration. That's creating a very small air pocket gap between all the little particles, and it turns it to a liquid, look. See that? It acts like liquid. It's not really a liquid, it's just particles of sand. But they behave like a liquid because they've got that pressure all the way through them, right? So you can make solids behave in different ways. Absolutely. We're not all built on sand, remember. We're not all built on sand. There's clay and there's rock and there's other things. But that's incredible. That's physics. That's physics. Incredibly cool physics. In a similar way, at a correct frequency of vibration, or just with a, you know, consistent shake, what's under the sand, water, can rise up through it, because you're creating space consistently in that sand. It can rise up through it. So that can happen as well. Look, this example. And this is why we don't build our houses on the sand. Why wise man builds his house on the rock, or in this case, with foundations. So it's not like a, you know, like a secret conspiracy. It's something that they teach people in engineering school, because look, this is one where they're pumping again. This is they're pumping. They're doing what I was saying before about pumping air through it and creating a pressure that creates that very small amount of distance in the sand that allows it to become more like liquid. I think they may be creating a vacuum. I can't be sure because I can't see if they've got a lid on it properly. Or they're putting water in, I don't know. See the boil? There it goes. So this is an experiment. Liquefaction demonstrated in saturated sand. The structured dog figurine eventually sank into the sand. During liquefaction, a saturated source, so it's about saturation of water, a saturated source substantially loses shear strength in response to an applied stress causing it. In saturated loose sands, liquefaction phenomenon in earthquakes is characterized by cyclic stress duration in very short for water to drain out. It's hard to read what they've written there. But basically, it's science. Yeah? You're right, it looks like a Florida sinkhole. And I'm not that educated on this aspect of this science. Although, you know, it looks interesting. I'm quite interested to find out. But I knew enough to bring us here, didn't I? I knew enough to bring us here. I knew that if you pump air through it, you can do it. And now I know that if you saturate the ground, you can do it. Sinking sand. That's obviously a Photoshop one there. But we're talking about sediments and stuff like that. So the reason that we know all about this, though, is because nowadays we don't build on those things. We make sure to avoid that in our foundation. Like this one with the 3 houses proved it, didn't it? They built a house with the foundation so it wouldn't sink. You know, they're aware of it. So they might suggest that a great war has done that to the entire Earth. Soil liquefaction from the great earthquake after the War of Gog and Magog. Now look, we can prove that earthquakes have done soil liquefaction through history. So we don't know if it was because of a great War of Gog and Magog, but we do know that it's happened. So this is where conspiracy theories can trip up themselves and get confused, is because some things can be real, but it doesn't mean that they were, you know, the Great War of Gog and Magog. It doesn't mean that they were caused by fantastical things. The second and final Great War involving Gog and Magog is referred to by John in Revelation. So this is one of these Revelation things that they think has already happened. Because bear in mind, you know, the rest of Christianity, the rest of the Jesus fan base are waiting for him to come back. This lady's not. She's beyond that. She's a different kind of Christian. She's not with the Pope and the, you know, whoever else you like that's good at Jesus. Who's your top Jesus one? She's not with them. They're waiting for Jesus to come back, living as good as they can, doing their best. She thinks there's no point. Jesus has already been and gone. Gog and Magog are prophetic names given in the scriptures to a combination of nations which will fight against the purposes of the Lord on 2 separate and future occasions. So it's like world war between these giant nations. I don't know which one Gog and which one Magog is supposed to be, but we could look into that future in the future. But now we know what they're suggesting. They're suggesting that at the end of Christ's reign, a giant war shook the earth and that all the buildings sunk into the soil due to the soil liquefaction. But we've proven that buildings with proper structures won't sink. Proven that things that have like foundations and stuff like that don't sink. You know, something else that came into my head the other day as well. You know, another one of her videos. Do you remember we watched her video the other day and it had the soil coming up to like halfway up to the house, and she was like, the house used to be all underground. Dig away and that's the house. That's your front door. They had to put a new front door when the soil came up to here. It popped into my head that all these houses with basements, why isn't your basement floor your first floor then? Why aren't all houses got basements with kitchens and front doors on them? Because our basement at my dad's house is just one room. It's not the whole floor. It's just one room. And it doesn't seem to be laid out like the original first floor would have been. It seems to be laid out like a basement would do. Seems like the basement was there first, and then your idea about it being the first floor came along later. Anyway.
Would say that for the end of Christ's reign, I believe the soil liquefaction could also be from the time that Satan is loosed. I could definitely see a worldwide earthquake happening at that point in time, because if we would be at that point in that short season.
You see, I don't know if you can assume that you can have a worldwide earthquake. It's hard, so hard. We've only done 2 minutes and I'm stopping so often. See, Bab, I don't know if you can have a worldwide earthquake. I don't know if the whole world can be shook all at once, can it? Because we've got tectonic plates, like I explained before, and they're the causes of the earthquakes. Now, if one tectonic plate is pushing towards the other, and they build up force, and friction happens, and one bumps, that's an earthquake. That's an earthquake. Can the whole world have an earthquake? I bet when the fuffing chuffer thing that killed dinosaurs, I bet that shook a bit of the earth. Once. Maybe that shook the earth. But can the whole world have an earthquake at once? History shows they occur in patterns. I just want a simple answer to a simple question. Just want a simple answer to a simple question. Look at this, there's cores the earth, and there's waves. This is something I do know. The waves travel through that outer core differently to the way they travel through the mantle, differently to the way they travel through the inner core. Waves certainly do pass through the core. The outer core you have pick up here. The inner core is also traverse central core. I don't know what that really proves. Don't know if it proves it. Alessandro's answer. Where's Alessandro's answer? That's what he recommends. As an earthquake is a result of the interaction of two plates, its location has to be at one of those plates. That's what I just said. The other plates of the world are not involved. So for all the world's plates to be involved at once, there'd have to be a bunch of separate earthquakes at the same time. So there wouldn't be one big earthquake, there'd all be different smaller earthquakes. A very big space rock could apply enough force to the plate that it hits and jams into its neighbour, and that causes it to jam into its other neighbours. That could happen. But the Earth's internal forces never apply that much energy in a focused way on their own. So it couldn't happen from Earth's internal forces. And I contest that if one plate is pushing this way against that way to cause an earthquake there, the other end of the plate is moving away from the plate. So it can't all push in every direction, can it? You need some extra force pushing. And it's got to be quite a force. Now, the earthquakes are restricted to the confines of their areas. So we're saying it has to be a meteorite. Has to be something from space. Meteor or meteorite. Or maybe we could nuke. I don't know if you know, nukes didn't shake the world, did they? We've done a bit of nuking. I don't know. Doesn't seem very likely though, does it? Doesn't seem very likely. You'll have to... I can't prove a negative, so if you want to prove that the whole world can be earthquaked at once, you'll have to find some way of showing me.
I don't believe that Gog and Magog would have happened yet. I could be wrong because I am certainly no Bible scholar, but this is certainly a possibility. But
I thought she was a Bible scholar. She does chuffing Bible study every chuffing morning. She just told me she wasn't a Bible scholar.
That Gog and Magog would have happened yet. I could be wrong because I am certainly no Bible scholar, but...
And yes, quicksand should have been a bigger hazard. I was led to believe, because I watched a lot of cartoons as a youngster, and I was led to believe quicksand was going to be a big hazard in my life too.
This is certainly a possibility, but I believe it could also just be an earthquake from when Satan was loose from his prison for the short season. So that is really what inspired this video today, because I think that it is a very good theory that there have been 3 resets and that they were not instigated by the controllers, but by God himself.
Hang on, we've thrown another wheel in the spanner in the wheel. Apparently now there's some controllers. Maybe I should be watching these videos in reverse order, because I'm watching the newest one first, and I don't know what these controllers are. A supervolcano could wipe out most of the world. I mean, maybe. Sorry, Luke. I shouldn't be answering comments in the accent, should I? Maybe it could. I'll find. Should we find out? I mean, maybe it could. But they're saying that it did. And then actually, I would say, in response to that, is if you did have a supervolcano, the volcanic stuff and the ash would cover everything, but that wouldn't be mud. It wouldn't be a mudslide, would it? It wouldn't be the liquefaction of the Earth's surface. It would be an addition of more stuff to the Earth's surface. So there's that. And you'd have a giant volcano left after. There'd be like a giant volcano left. We'd be able to go and look at it and point at it. Stand on it.
So let's just look at some of the buildings.
But she thinks it's the idea that there had been a great flood, an Armageddon, and the end of the 1,000-year reign of Jesus causing these 3 separate reset events is quite a solid theory, really, when you suggest it. It sounds quite reasonable. So let's have a look.
The building evidence, we could call it, that would illustrate the flood. So reset 1. So here we have a photo of some underwater pyramids and some other structures.
These look like those things from Japan that Luke was talking about earlier, that we referenced earlier as well, that, you know, it's quite normal to have things that were coastal now underwater.
And, you know, to me, that really gives a clear example that the pyramids that we find both in South America and in Mexico and in Egypt and all over the world, there are pyramids all over the world. They're just not as famous as the ones in Egypt, but they are also pre-flood, and that would have been during reset 1, the flood. And I did mention in another video that I believed that the flood would have been a reset.
So the pyramids were in the flood as well. I'm a bit confused as to why some places have been allowed to come out of the water again and other places have been left under it.
Here we have another photo of an underground pyramid, and this certainly looks like the ones that you would find in Mexico.
I would say, you know, when you're going into these ancient buildings, we looked at a little bit about, in our very early streams, didn't we? We looked at a little bit about the ancient world, and you do see some quite common structural styles, because you haven't got that many architectural styles to go off, have you? You've only got like squares and piles, and like you're forming your own ideas, and like a little structure like that's probably a bit easier to build than a chuffing skyscraper. You know, it makes a bit of sense. It's like human logic to build in a certain way, and it's no surprise that all over the world humans had similar thinking, because it happens today. Excuse me, that tea just came back up on me. It happens today, doesn't it? You get like, you know, similar ideas going around, even though you're from different places. You're all human.
This, I believe this is in the Mediterranean.
God, I love it when she brings up a picture that she has no verification for. Now, you've got to bear this in mind. Listen, Bab. Now, listen, Bab. You've got to bear this in mind. If you're going to use something as evidence, it's got to be verifiable. You can't just say there's a picture. Could you? Is that a picture? Is that a picture from a fish tank? Could be a nice fish tank, that could, couldn't it? A nice fish tank somewhere in an aquarium. And they've just put those things in. There's a picture. You can't say it's just a picture. I think it's in the Mediterranean. You've got to be able to prove where it is. Otherwise, it's nonsense. It's just a picture.
And this is also some underwater structures. Now, I do want to...
There's a chuffing tree. There's a tree. Now, come on. We're not saying that this was flooded so recently that the tree's still alive. Because you put a tree underwater like that, and it's going to die, isn't it? It's not going to have green leaves. It's not going to have recently... It must be the summer, and then the flood happened immediately, because the leaves are still out. Come on. Come off it. Come off it, Bab.
Point out that I am not saying that all of these...
This is ridiculous. Hang on. I need to move the browser so I can see it properly. What am I doing? Now I'm the idiot. Look, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Look at that tree. You can't be telling me that tree's there, underwater, growing, like a normal tree.
We're submerged in the
with a fish, submerged, million years ago.
flood. What I'm saying is that it is just giving you an illustration of what these remains would look like if this
Would look like. So it's not real, it's an artist's impression. There's a chuffing tree in it, come off it.
were the case. And this one I found really interesting, and I don't know, honestly, if this is real because it looks like an entire underwater town.
Now, I'm not saying anything. I want you to be the judge of this. This is the best quality you're going to get. Because honestly, on my computer screen here, I'm watching this in 720p. 1080p. That's the 1080p there. That's your HD. Now look, there's some bubbles, so it's underwater, isn't it? That's not how bubbles behave underwater. All random like that. Who's creating those bubbles? I'm gonna have to swear, Bab. It's not a fucking photo, is it? It's not a fucking photo, is it? It's not a fucking photo. No, there's no evidence, no reference. I can't believe it. She's looked at that and she's thought, right, put that in me folder. That's going in me folder. I can't wait to see what this red circle's for. What's that mysterious thing? Bit of wood floating in the sea. Proof this looks like a whole town underwater. Looks like the whole town's underwater. I mean, God forbid, it might be that there really is a town underwater like that somewhere and they've drawn this artist's impression of it. Fine. We can prove these things can happen. The sea rises.
And it's from thisisitaly.com.
This is Italy? Oh my God. So it's from a place that's known for its rising and falling sea levels. It's known for its volcanic activity covering its towns. It's known for it being near a tectonic plate. It's known for it. It's known for it. Come on, Bob. Italy. Italy. Underwater. Coastal town. Italy. Underwater. Coastal town. Images. Loads of it. Ancient Roman underwater city in Italy. A lost underwater city has been found years after it sank. The scientists are down there. They've got the Roman ruins. It's right on the coast of Italy. There's a partially submerged one. As the water goes out, you can see it. When the water comes in, you can't. It's Anno Londo, innit? It's Anno Chuffing Londo. It's Anno Londo. That's what I'm led to believe. I'd look at that. Now, I'm not an expert in Bible technology. But from what I can see, God came down from heaven and submerged that city. That's the only explanation there could be. Isn't it? There's Venice. As the seas rise. Flooding. In Venice. That's Venice. That's Italy. Literally built out into the sea. On stilts and stuff. Venice. Of course there's things in the sea. There's going to be more of them. As the seas rise, there's going to be more of them. God help us. Go on then, love. I forgot what your first name is. I can't remember your first name. It's rude of me to not remember your first name. Come on then, love.
And yeah, I don't know, but if you actually look at it, to me, that looks a lot like what we call Tartarian architecture today.
Again, we know she's not an expert on architecture. We discovered in the last video. She had no idea. She had no idea about architecture. Tartarian. Because remember, she's got this little problem. No offence to you Americans. No offence to you Americans. But she's got this little problem because in America, there are no buildings that date before 1700. There are no buildings that are in any form of pre-Georgian style. Really? There are buildings of different styles now, but not actual old ones. Because America was the new world, wasn't it? It's the new world. Oh yeah, that's a scuba diver, isn't it? You're right. That's a scuba diver. Yeah, you're right. That's a scuba diver with the fins. I've only just spotted that now. I've only figured it out. Proof, evidence, proof. Must be a photo. It's got a person in it. So in America, you haven't got so many old buildings, but all over Europe and all over, we've got lots of old buildings. Now, the architecture there, you might think it's Tartarian, because we called the entirety. Do you remember? Remember what we said about Tartaria? It was everywhere, the whole of northern Siberia, because we just put a big conglomerate name over the whole chuffing thing. Big conglomerate name. It can all be Tartaria. So it can cover everything, can't it, really? Because at some point we called all of it Tartarian, but it's not. Some of it's Oriental, some of it's Roman, some of it's Greco-Roman, some of it's post-Greco-Roman, some of it could be Georgian, way off later on. You call it by the times of the kings and queens, don't you? Like, could be Elizabethan. At all these different times, and all these different architects taking all these inspirations. We've been through that.
So, for example, we could consider this to be what people call Tartarian architecture.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's what people commonly refer to as Neo-Gothic. Neo-Gothic. I'm telling you. All that stuff on top of the building, all those strange statues. If you go to... Where is it? Czechia. The Czech Republic. Prague. If you go to Prague, Prague is a Gothic city. Prague's a Gothic city. Look at those spires on that there. Gothic architecture. You might call it Tartarian. It's not though. Prague's not in that Tartarian area. It's not out there. But you might call it that, Bab. You might call it that. You'd be wrong. That's the famous bridge. It's got all statues on it. You can't see it from here, but it's got all Gothic statues on it. You might call that Tartarian. You're wrong. It's Gothic. If I put Neo-Gothic. Neo meaning new. And Gothic meaning Gothic. That's Neo-Gothic, look. You might think it's Tartarian. It's chuffing not. You chuffer.
And
Look, it's modern building that. It's got modern materials.
not saying that it has anything to do actually with Grand Tartaria, but I'm just using that classification to describe just this idea of this beautiful, exquisite architecture all over the world in a time period when it seems that people would not have the technology to do these things.
Are you an idiot? That's a modern building. Give us some. You've got to give us some evidence of when this building was put together, when it was built. But if it's anywhere beyond 1700, it's modern enough for us to do that. Easy. Are you mad? You think this has been built before people had the technology to build it? We were carving stone in the pyramids. They were carving stone in the pyramids. It's all made of stone blocks. We had slaves. Manual labour. Leverage. Physics. Levers. Leverage. Ropes. We were carving stone in the pyramids.
And, you know, we were always given the impression in school that we are so much better than our ancestors.
What? Nobody gave me that impression. When I was doing my searching and researching and learning about the history in school, I was learning how good the ancestors were, about all the good things they'd done. You know.
But if you actually, you know, look into the second law of thermodynamics, things do break down over time. They get worse over time.
Is she talking about entropy? Energy and entropy. Is the second law of thermodynamics... Oh my god. Oh my god. Where's she getting confused now? If she's talking about energy and entropy, right. The second law of thermodynamics is that hot things become cold. And the flow of the energy is that way, look. Right? Heat, energy and entropy. Entropy. I knew she was. What that means is that energy wants to be in its most simple state. I think that's something like that. I'm not a physics expert. What we're talking about is energy breaks down over time in a natural way. You heat something up, it'll cool down. It'll cool down. Let's have a look at the laws of thermodynamics here. two systems in equilibrium with the third system are in thermal equilibrium with each other. It wants to be equal to temperature. It wants to equal out and even out. The first law, energy could change forms, but it's not created or destroyed. You start off with this amount of energy and it goes somewhere. And then it's over there. It's not destroyed. You didn't create it or destroy it. You moved it. It changes. Entropy is about breaking down, yeah? Entropy is about breaking down to a simplest form. Not just completely breaking down to nothing and destroying. The second law is entropy of an isolated system. So now we're an isolated system. We're not saying we've got all sorts of different things going on. You've got this thing that's hot, this thing that's cold. In an isolated system, the entropy always increases. It always goes across a gradient towards hot to cold. It always goes one way. The third law, entropy of a system approaches a constant as the temperature approaches absolute zero. Fair enough. Sounds straightforward. I think she's got confused. Because I think she's suggesting that everything always breaks down, like she means rocks. Rocks.
And that includes humans, evolution.
Oh my God, that includes humans. We all break down in those laws of thermodynamics.
It's
I'll have a breakdown in a minute.
It's impossible. We humans are de-evolving. And this is really a great...
She throws a lot of stuff up, doesn't she, in the first 5 minutes that I have to keep stopping and starting the video. We're de-evolving. We're de-evolving. So now she believes in evolution. She's not that crazy Bible madman who thinks that there's chuff in evolution and no evolution and chuff in Adam and Eve. She thinks we have evolved, but now we're de-evolving. Devolving, you'd call it. Devolve. You wouldn't say de-evolving. You'd say devolving if you knew your words. But it's not even... It's a silly idea, because if we do devolve, it's still evolution. It's just a different... we've evolved a different... Or that... Your up and down are irrelevant. There's no state of relativity in this. You carry on evolving or devolving. You could say it's devolving. It's just a form of evolving, isn't it? Into a different state. We are probably evolving, probably, but not in the way you think.
Great example of that. And so to me, if you go back to this underwater structure here, it really could illustrate that the people who lived in the Antediluvian era likely had far more advanced technology than not only than what we think that they might.
Oh my God. Antediluvian. What? The time before the biblical flood. All right, okay. That's vague, isn't it? That's vague. I grew a tail. That's evolution. That's forward evolution. Even if you used to have them, you're getting them back. That's still forward. It's still forward movement. You can't go backwards. You can only go forwards. Evolution. Grew a tail. Evolution. Can I keep up the voice? Can I keep up the voice? I don't know if I can. But it makes me sound better, doesn't it, when I'm being mean to her? So Antediluvian is everything before the biblical flood. So we don't know exactly when the biblical flood was. Oh, it's a humorous word to mean ridiculously old-fashioned. That's such antediluvian ideas. You've got such archaic and stupid ideas. That racism is like antediluvian. So it's like a humorous jibe, but she's taking it to mean it seriously, like before the biblical flood, which is like, so everything that happened before the flood, because that's including you either believe the Bible and then just the Bible happened, but this also might include ancient China, ancient the Mesopotamians. I don't know when the flood's supposed to happen specifically, but all this ancient history is antediluvian. So I've learned a new word. I'm happy with that. But I don't know if she knows what it means properly.
Have had, but probably...
I mean, she probably does know what it means. She probably does, actually. I'm discrediting it there. That's unfair. See, if I did it in me of the voice, though, I've learned a new word, but I don't know if she even knows what the truffle means. Sounds better, doesn't it?
Far more advanced technology than what we have. So building something like this would not have been that big of a deal to them. And here's just another example of what we would call Tartarian architecture that really...
Here's another example of what we call Tartarian architecture, but again, if you knew a bit or a thing or two about architecture, which I don't know enough, but I do know about those pillars that form that little wall and on top the pillars, and I do know a little bit about those little minarets. I think this has got some inspiration from the Moroccan or the Arabic. So I think this is a post-colonial building with some modern artistic inspiration.
It reminds me of what we saw in that underwater photo. And, you know, I think that a lot of the buildings that we see like this, and again, this is just all, I'm just postulating here, but I think that a lot of the buildings that we see possibly could have been pre-flood. Now,
oh God, right, so this is pre-flood. So somehow this has been flooded under the water, she reckons. This is possible. She's thinking this is possible. There's potential here. Again, she's not showing us what it is, where it is, so we can verify. Because if you tell us what that building is, they could probably show us the plans for when it was built. They probably know when it was built. They probably have pictures of the builders doing it. Could be that modern, you don't know. Right, but she's saying it could be pre-flood. Now, you'd know if it was pre-flood because you'd know when it was built, where it is. There's one. Number two, if it was, why isn't it under fucking water then? Where's all the water erosion? Why isn't it covered in mud? Why is that one at ground level? If it was pre-flood, it should be up to its eyes in chuffing mud, according to you.
one misgiving that I have about the whole scenario is water damage, but we don't know how much these buildings have been renovated over time. And if they had advanced technology, they very likely would have had a more durable way of building.
What? Because you've got more advanced technology, you've got a more durable form of building. Because you knew it was going to get flooded, so you built it to withstand floods. Out of stone, that's normal stone, but apparently can withstand floods now because you've got more advanced techniques. And you need more advanced techniques to build things that actually are not as advanced as our modern building. Nowadays, we don't use blocks of stone to build our buildings, do we? We build chuffing skyscrapers out of carbon fibre and chuffing steel and that. There's none of that there. Modern techniques, super modern techniques, made it to withstand the flood. I don't think so. You're right, Bob.
I don't know. But to me, you know, I think that we really need to start looking into whether these buildings that we are looking at were built by a people that we never even suspected could have possibly done it.
Of course, they could have been built by people we never could have possibly expected done it. Milo. We'll do a big face, little break for big face Milo. Come on, Bob. Come on. There he is. There he is. Is that what's Daddy doing? Daddy's doing his voice. Isn't he? Who's he talking to? You're a good boy you are, aren't you? Oh, a kiss for Daddy. Good boy. Down to 1% battery. We've only got 6 minutes into our video. We've got to push on.
And this is just a photo of the Grand Canyon. And there are actually, if you look here in the distance, it does look like there could be some pyramid-like structures here. And there are a lot of narrative accounts of people finding Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon.
Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. I don't know if you've ever come across that. I mean, you're in America. I'm not in America. But I don't know if you have heard of Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. I don't know if the Grand Canyon looked like that in the times of ancient Egypt. I'm not sure how long it takes to form those geological structures. But maybe you know a little bit about the Grand Canyon and how it formed and whether Egyptians were there.
And what looked to be like pyramids. And I've actually...
And they didn't call the Egyptians back then because they didn't call it Egypt. Did they? They had their own name for it. Ancient Egypt name for Egypt. Why can't I remember this off the top of my head? Kemet, of course. Kemet. It was called Kemet. Strange combination of things to come up on the old Google search there. But it was called Kemet. It was an African multiracial society, you know, an early African multiracial society, Kemet. And it is what we now call Egypt. Because, you know, we drew different lines around things and the world changed. But Kemet was, you know, obviously Egypt's part of Africa, and Africa's where all the original people came from. So no wonder they had this sort of stuff going on all the way back then. Ancient history. Interesting. It's like ancient Egyptian history, but it's just ancient history of Africa, really, isn't it? Kemet. So if they did end up in the Grand Canyon at the same time, building things, it wouldn't have been Egyptian. It would have been of Kemet. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Talked about this a little bit in one of my other videos about the reset. But this really just shows, if there were a reset, this would certainly be evidence of it right here.
Why?
Imagine a flood so cataclysmic that it was able to carve something like this out.
Imagine a flood so cataclysmic that it was able to carve something like that out. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but if the world goes underwater, it doesn't start like under the sea. It's not carving out the ocean floor. That's not how it works. The flood would have to have been like, you're suggesting, like a river that eroded. So it didn't go to the top of that, but it was such a forceful and fast-moving river that it just carved out this. That's not how it works. That's not how it works either. It's about time. The erosion of, it doesn't matter how fast the river's flowing, like, unless you've got pressure washer, which you can't have, because the water would then just flow out. You know what I'm saying? You can't pressurize a river in that way. There's a limit to the pressure and the speed of the river, and that limit is easily understood, and then you could verify how long it would take to carve out the Grand Canyon with a pressurized high pressure river from source of whatever source. I don't know what source, but that's a suggestion she's made, but I can categorically state that it's incorrect, and that we can work out how incorrect it is. And that's why they know the Grand Canyon wasn't formed by a giant fast moving river. That's why they didn't suggest to us. When we find out how you have to find out so much stuff, don't you? Like, she is like homeschooling in a way, because I'm having to learn so much stuff. How the Grand Canyon formed. I'm guessing it's tectonic plates that moved away from each other. Erosion from the river cut a deep channel through layers of rock. Okay, it's erosion. Oldest exposed rock. Brilliant. So it's just straightforward erosion. It took a long time. It wasn't that you got a river that's so powerful it carved it through in weeks. It's been there for long years. Millions of years. And how do they know that? Because they've got tiny pieces of rock and soil deposited by the river, because it revealed the geological formation beneath it. You see how it carved its way through and revealed these sections of land, like these layers of rock. Yeah? I'm actually being able to work it out myself now. So it reveals the layers of rock as it carves it out. So those layers of rock must have been there for it to carve through it. That makes sense, doesn't it? So it had to take a long time as it worked its way through all these layers of rock. If it was one big fast thing that happened all at once, there wouldn't be so many layers, because there wouldn't have been so much time passed. Each layer is millions of years of time passing, isn't it? So you have one big blast and it's all... Oh, maybe it started very quickly and subsided very quickly. Maybe. I don't think so. I think all the geologists versus this lady. I'll go with the geologists.
You can't get more destructive than that. Now, I do have to point out, though, that I'm also of the belief that this could possibly have been a mining operation. And that is another video
Well, it's not a mining operation. It's a river.
Entirely. So, so many theories out there, but you know what? I'm going to explore them because I think it's interesting, and there's nothing wrong with using your brain just to even dream once in a while.
So it's weird the way she she sets everything she says, instead of saying this is what I think and it's rubbish, but I think it, she won't stand by any of these ideas that she brings up. She's questioning things. She's got double question mark in the title. She's questioning things. She's not standing by them as ideas, which is quite a cowardly way to present this, isn't it? And also, it's fair enough for her to say, okay, I don't really know, so I'd like to find out. But it's interesting that is what she would like to find out about, rather than all of the wonders of the world that we do know about, that can be explained, that are quite... Like, I don't know about all these different layers of rock. Maybe I could find out about them. That would be interesting, rather than just making up some fantastical as she admitted herself there, daydreams, and then seeing if we can follow them to some sort of unnatural conclusion. Seems like a weird way to go about it, but yeah, I don't think it's fair for her to say these are the ideas, and I don't believe in them. I'm just questioning them and making videos about them, questioning them. I think that's a bit unfair, disingenuous of her.
And here is just a photo of an above ground pyramid, which
very loose to call that a pyramid, isn't it? If you're calling that a pyramid, then of course all of the structures that have been built in like medieval England would have been pyramids, but they weren't. They were on top of hills. There were hills on hills to be generally protected. I don't think that's the same concept as a mausoleum. I don't know if this one is. I don't know what it is and where it is again, but you know, if you're just going to throw anything that's sort of structurally a bit of a hill and call it a pyramid, then you're going to get confused, aren't you?
All seen photos of these before.
And they don't have those super techniques. Why don't they have? They've just piled up rocks. They've just piled up stones. Why haven't they got super techniques?
But for now,
chuffing advert, you chuffer. Get off with your advert. Get away.
Head back to this comment because I'm going to shortly get into Reset 2, Armageddon, and what we could look at as evidence of that. But I do have to say that in between 1 and 2, I would also consider, and I've spoken of this in another video as well, I would also consider the Tower of Babel to be a reset as well, and that could actually explain why there are so many similar architecture styles all over the world.
She suggested this. We did see that in that previous video, the Tower of Babel, and that biblical story about everyone being scattered around the world and speaking different languages. Of course, we know nowadays that the reason we speak different languages is because we developed different languages in different parts of the world as we evolved and grew as different civilizations under the same banner of species. As humans evolved in different parts of the world, we speak different languages. Even as close as England and Ireland, or Scotland or Wales, you know, France and Germany. We speak different languages all over the place. Little countries close together speaking different languages all over the place, because we can trace those back to the early origins of them. And it wasn't a scattered... They'd have all been... The early origins of those languages, they'd have all been writing down these stories about these scattering in the Tower. But they weren't. They weren't. Some of these cultures don't even have the Bible, and their languages go back before it. So...
in a time period... Well, we're in a time period that we were told that they were built when there would have been no communication between some of these countries, at least not to the extent that they would be building almost exact replicas of the architecture.
And again, we looked at that because I think she's referring to the British Empire days when we went around and built our British sort of buildings all over the world, and yeah, there wasn't much communication. Like, we did what we wanted. there's a lot of different architecture all over the world. I'm not going to go too deep into what she's just said there because it is just a bit inane, isn't it? The idea that similar architecture exists around the world. So conspiracy.
And I know a lot of people say that that was English colonization, but not all the time. Not all of the countries that had this architecture were colonized by...
No, but they could see the buildings that were built all around the world and they could copy them.
By the British. So anyway...
Like when earlier we did that Gothic style, like... I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bring up... I'll try and get on with their video. But, you know, earlier we looked at a building that was like architecturally designed by a modern architect. Like back then, in their modern times, their day and age, they could have said, oh, I like the way the British are building their buildings all the way around the world. I like those styles. Let's follow the same suit and style. The way the trends and fashion and modern, you know, that's how it works.
We're not going to get into that one right now. Let's just get into Armageddon. And Armageddon would be the melted structures and mountains. So let's look at that.
Let's look at Armageddon. This will be fun.
Okay. So I was just scrolling around on Instagram and I decided to look in some of my saved photos, and I found some interesting ones that would have gone well in with Armageddon, because when you think of Armageddon, you think of fire raining down from the sky, and this would have been this would have had the ability to melt buildings, which we do see evidence of melted buildings and structures all over.
I'm not sure if you've spotted here, but this is not a melted building. Don't know if you spotted this. What this is this is a sort of roadway built alongside a cliff face, and they've built these arches which are structurally quite strong. The photo's on a bit of a wonk because the road would probably be relatively straight, or it might not be. You know, it might be deliberately sloping, you know, traversing this cliff. And they built these arches. It may have been an aqueduct. It may have been a roadway. I can't tell, don't know exactly where it is. It says Glacier National Park, Montana, but I don't know. And if it's been a glacier, there could have been some slippage. But really, it's built on rock. You can see the bricks where they start and end, and you can see the rock where that starts and ends. And there's no melting or melding of the two.
Over the world. And this is just one example of what looks to be that it could have been a melted building. Now, this also kind of looks like aqueducts to me. Very well could have been. And it also has the features of what in my hometown they call limestone kilns, although I don't think that's what this is.
Interesting, isn't it, that she thinks it's an aqueduct like I do, because we both spotted those arches, and those arches are a familiar architectural feature of Roman aqueducts. But because Roman aqueducts have been around since Rome, since the Roman times, since like 27 BC, you can copy that style if you want to build any structure in modern times. And you'll see bridges these days. Modern bridges, you know, quaint little bridges in villages around the UK, not so modern, but with the same arch in mind, because, you know, it's a standard common feature of architecture. It doesn't have to be a modern art thing, it doesn't have to be an ancient thing, it's just a feature that's been around for thousands of years. Probably pre-Roman. Arches are probably around pre-Roman, but we recognise them most as Roman arches, don't we?
To me, it looks like it could be more of an aqueduct, but it could also indeed be the photo of an enormous melted building.
Right, it definitely can't be the photo of an enormous melted building, though. We know that, don't we?
Let's see.
This is incredible.
And
this is going to blow your mind. This is incredible. On the right, we have a Gothic, I think it's a limestone Gothic church that has been reconditioned. You can see on the roof, this very peak of the spires has been reconditioned. And to the left of the photograph of the church, you can see there's new white stone on the very left of it. So over the years, what happens is, if it's made of lime or calcium-based rock or whatever, it will erode with not just rain and natural things, but we get more, like, you've heard of acid rain, haven't you? Like, it's obviously nuclear acid rain, but you get more environmental factors that cause erosion as we make more modern pollutants, the things that have to be cleaned, cleaning of it, the rain, the different chemical makeup of the acidity, even if it's not like acid rain, just balance. There are some very good and well understood structural reasons to use arches. Yes, David Lee, I think you're a new chatter. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Arches have shown themselves to be useful, so it's no surprise that they come up quite often in architecture. I don't think it does prove the buildings were melted. This one, the building looks a bit melted. The church looks a bit melted because it kind of has been by erosion over the years. And because it was carved in such delicate, and it's reminding me of, is it Gaudi? Is it Gaudi? Yeah, look, I found it, look. I found it. The Sagrada Familia Church by Gaudi. So Gaudi was known for, he was quite a modern, so we'll visit this. Oh, it's a site for a picture. I thought it'd be a site to talk about the actual church, but it's not. Gaudi was quite a modern architect, Spanish, and he did this really intricate, detailed work, like these rock carvings. Look how intricate and detailed it is. So it's no surprise that when that starts to erode, it starts to look like mush pretty quickly, doesn't it? Because it's all intricate and detailed. And even that, from a distance, oh, sorry, you can't see it, my browser's, sorry. Even that from a distance is it's quite like, if you took a photo of that from a distance, you're going to just see it as a bit of a mess. It's harder to see what we're looking at from a distance. But Gaudi, this is the church, the Sagrada Familia Church. So it's not a melted building. See, I knew it had been renovated. Here's a picture of the renovation taking place. Knew it had been renovated. It's still under construction. So I'm a bit wrong. I'm not. See, I don't claim to be like the authentic, the authority on everything. I'm just an authentic person who, you know, knows a bit here, knows a bit there. Like you, David, I knew it was, I knew it was Gaudi, but I didn't know it's still under construction. Maybe he died, and look at it, it's a massive project, isn't it? So maybe he died, and then trying to finish it off still. So it's still under construction. We now know this building was built. I just want to get Gaudi and just Gaudi. Just put Gaudi because I just want to know his Wikipedia, but it is the truth, isn't it? He was 1852 and he died in 1926. So they're still building it after he died in 1926. It started construction in 1800s, 1883, and they're still not finished, look. So this is a modern building, yeah? A modern building. We're gonna absolutely accept that's a modern building that ages quickly due to its delicate and intricate construction and materials, and hasn't even been finished. Yeah, happy with that. We're happy with that. It's very commonly claimed by mudsides to be an ancient Tartarian mudflood. Well, this is what she's showing us, isn't it? Now, look, she hasn't showed us. This is what I love about the way this is presented. She hasn't showed us this is Gaudi's church. She hasn't said that. She said, look at this old building. Could be from anywhere. Could be from anywhere. Who knows? You have to go and find out yourself. And now that we found out, it proves against her. But look what it's next to. This is what you're going to have to bear in mind. Look, this is the level of what we're talking about. What it's next to is clearly a termite mound, isn't it? There's grass in the foreground, so you can see the scale and size of that building. It's not a building that's next to it, is it? Isn't that a termite mound? So now I have to do some more learning. I'm doing Cozier now, not Google. Just switched into Cozier. Plant a few trees while we're at it. Objectively for the next 10 years. Speed of construction is increased thanks to our ability to, you know, do. I'm assuming AutoCAD is a modern technique that makes it better because, like, good old modernity, good old modern ideas. Don't have to just make things up out of the books. You know, maybe it's this, just make it up. So termite mounds. Am I wrong here in thinking that termite mounds? What's that? That's the picture. That's the picture that she was looking at. I'm doing good work today. Look, that's the picture that she was looking at. To contrast with the palm trees, consider this term. This thesis is about how skyscrapers share elements with palm trees. This is someone's architectural thesis, I think. Some work someone's done for their education, for their degree maybe. What they're saying here about this termite mound is, termites form cooperatives, they're nester colonies, they have many shared interests. This mound still exhibits a significant element of trying to climb skyward. The termite mound shows more significant signs of cooperative communal behaviour. In particular, the spires share common bases, so all the termites are in the same place at the base, and they build a big base, and then they don't attempt to stand vertically without any lateral support. These termites aren't quite obsessed with the right angle as human beings are. They're not rectangular. So what he's saying is they're sort of organically, naturally trying to go upwards, so they build pyramids. Not pyramids, but, you know, spires, whatever. He's written a bit about the architectural styles of termites. The architecture of a failure of cooperation. It's a really interesting philosophical idea about sort of natural. Can't see the picture of tall trees there, unfortunately, but sort of way nature solves the problem of going high. Interesting, that is. That's interesting. So now we know where... That is termites. It absolutely is termites. Yeah? It's termites. So why has she got a picture of Gaudi's church and a termite spot thing next? What's going on?
And here's just another example. We have this beautiful building over here, and then we take a look at this, and this certainly looks like it was a building. I don't know how big it was, though. If you look at the size...
Wait. Oh my god. I'm actually having a physical, emotional response here of like kind of excitement and joy, but I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I've got to do it in my West Midlands voice because I'm going to be mean to her, and if I'm going to be mean to her, I've got to do it in the comedy voice because otherwise it sounds too mean when I do it. But you think it's a chuffing building? You think that's a chuffing building? Oh, I can't even do the voice. I can't even keep my accent going because I'm so overjoyed, I don't know what the word is. She thinks it's a building. It's a termite mound. And she even says, she doesn't know how big it is because of the scale. Look, there's grass in the foreground in the picture. There's grass in the foreground. Of course you know how big it is. That's grass. They're not giant palm plants, are they? It's grass. There are trees in the background. Background, foreground, grass, termite mound. The picture's been taken off the internet from somebody who put it up and labelled it as a termite mound.
Size of this, to me, this actually looks like it was very small. So I'm actually kind of leery about that now looking at it a second time, but you can give me your thoughts on that one.
I'll give you my thoughts on that one. What the chuff is wrong with you? What the chuff is wrong with you?
This one definitely looks like something melted and landed on top of this building right here.
No. I mean, it could. Do you know what? When a volcano pops its load, it could, couldn't it, and land on a building. That could happen. But to me, it doesn't look like that. This looks more like someone has carved out of a piece of granite a sort of shape and then built into it, maybe. I don't know what that is. I'd have to find that picture again, and I bet there's a logical now that I've seen the other two pictures and I know the logical explanations, I'm more on the side of there's probably a logical explanation for this. I mean, it doesn't look like volcanic magma, does it? It doesn't look like, because magma, volcanic rock often is quite dark. It looks more like granite to me, and you can see there's some kind of like almost chiseled sharper edges to it where it's been broken. I think someone's carved it. I think someone's seen a big piece of rock, big old chuffer piece of rock on the mountainside, and they said, you know what, I could carve a cheeky house out of that. I think that's what they've done. Who knows? Or you know what? We could, yeah, it could be proof for Smurfs, couldn't it? We could, oh, there goes my battery. Quick battery swap. It could be that that's proof that buildings were melted. If it was melted, though, why would it end up like that? If you melt something, it doesn't look like that at the end, does it? All nicely shaped like a bit of a roof. The whole thing would be chuffing melted. All the area around it would be melted. She thinks someone's dropped some molten rock on someone's little house. Bear in mind, if you live in that little house up on the mountain... Bear this in mind, if you live in that little house up on the mountain, like, what are you doing to anyone that they need to drop molten rock on your house during a great reset? What have you done to anyone? Jesus has come for you, and he's dropped a great big chuffer of molten rock, and it hasn't completely demolished your house. In fact, you can still live in that. What's next? Throw some more at me.
We have here, and we have these towers in the Himalayas, and then we have these in Turkey. And
okay, again, I'm not, because of the sake of length of video. Now we're up to 2 hours of stream, so I'm going to finish off her thing and just say no when I see things. I'm not going to get the internet out and the Google for all of these, but we couldn't we? Because I think they're different kinds of stone in Turkey. I think they're different kinds of structures. I think they've been eroded in a different way than the Himalayan stone structures, and I think you have a different atmosphere. I think they're from different time periods, in a different atmosphere, suffering different conditions. I think it's just ridiculous to put original and melted. Why aren't the Himalayan ones melted? Why are they only melted in Turkey and not the Himalayas? Why did the Himalayas get away with it?
Yeah, they do look very similar, and they do indeed look like they could have possibly been melted.
No, they don't. They don't look like melted. If you had, look, get yourself some ice cream, right? A nice cold ice cream. Put it in a nice spire. Make a little tower out of it. Now get the hairdryer or whatever, the natural, leave it in the sun, and it's not going to melt like that, is it? It's going to fall over for a start. It's going to like make a puddle underneath it. So you'll have all molten puddled rock all around it. And it would like sink down into it, and eventually it'd probably weaken and fall, wouldn't it, at some point? It would have a puddle of rock around it.
From what, though? That's the question. And you can find these buildings all over the world, and most people would not even suspect. This is Castle Rock, and if you look very closely at it, it looks like there are entrances.
And again, this is, well, of course, because we did actually start this broadcast by looking at these geological formations that we now know can be formed through the structure. Was it, I think it was basalt, igneous basalt, that has a lot of magnesium and iron in it, and those crystals form these spire-like structures, and then as it erodes, it reveals itself like this.
So could this have been a melted building?
No, it can't have been a melted building, because if that was an entrance, why isn't it an entrance? Where's the interior? If buildings were melted, where are all the other melted materials? Yeah, where is everything else? Why do we only build in one material? That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Where's all the other melted stuff? Where's the little home sweet home, you know, where's the interior? Where's all the stuff? Why would it be a mountain? Why wouldn't it be a mountain? Why Occam's razor, you know, why wouldn't it just be a mountain? Why does it have to be like a melted house? I mean, if you look at that and you think, well, you know what, that looks a bit like a... It's like cloud bursting, isn't it? It's like, you know, you look at the clouds and you could, oh, that looks a bit like a dog. Therefore, dogs are in the sky. Like, no, it's just, it looks a bit shaped like a bit of a thing.
Look at all these places. And a lot of times we will look for right angles. Sometimes in these melted structures, you can see columns.
We explained at the start of the broadcast, because one of our first photographs was of these columns, and we found out that it was a naturally occurring geological formation because of the amount of magnesium and iron in the rock.
I just watched a Paul Cook video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and he took his own video footage and he showed what they call a cliff. You could actually see columns in there.
She's not going to show us their video, but again, it's the same columns that I'm talking about. So, brilliant that she follows some weird internet video person, but she couldn't work out by using Google the same things we could.
Here's another great example. If that doesn't look melted, I don't know.
It does, of course. Of course it looks melted. That's erosion. That's what erosion does, isn't it? That's how erosion works. It's a kind of... It looks a bit melted because the wind and the elements and the water and the way the erosion works. It looks a bit melted. But then they built into it with new bricks and things. It's an old bit of rock, new bit of building. Simple concept.
What would?
That's in the UK.
Here we have this too. And again, the question is, what melted these things?
Natural water erosion.
Could it have been what we're calling Reset 2?
No.
Armageddon?
No, that's not that is not evidence of Armageddon. We're back to this one. She showed us this in another video. This is a cliff face in Slovenia, I think it is, if I remember rightly. And that's a castle they built into the cliff face for safety, because that's what they did with castles back then. The people that live around there, they've got like a regular annual event where they all go up there and dress up as medieval people, because they've been able to trace the history all the way back, and you know they've regularly celebrated that medieval history. So we've got a chain of record all the way back to the days that was built. So we know all about that.
This one I had never seen before.
I've never seen it before because I don't believe it's real. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at that and I kind of just instinctively feel that is some kind of rendering for a video game or something. I don't believe it's real. It looks like a really mossy or possibly seaweed covered outcrop. Maybe it's lower than sea level these days and it's getting covered and uncovered. It just looks a bit unreal to me, though. I can't verify it in any way. I don't know what it is. And so it's not evidence of nothing, really, is it?
but you can just go right on. I use DuckDuckGo, but you can go right on the image search and you can type these things in, and it is amazing. All of.
Did she say she used DuckDuckGo? Is she on the dark web? She's on the dark web, isn't it? This is DuckDuckGo. I don't use that as a browser. It's a browser that you can use to search the dark web. Like, you can't get tracked. You know, oh, it's like Google, but you can't get tracked. Of course you can get tracked. Don't be stupid. Of course you can get tracked. If it's on the internet like that and you've typed it in, of course you can. And I don't use that. I use a Cozier because I want to plant trees. But fair enough. She's used DuckDuckGo.
The what?
the spider web. The spider web is more sticky and confusing than I thought. The mystery continues.
Look to be
what a strange person.
Melted structures that show up.
This is, I like doing this when people do this. I'm such a chuffer. This is her desktop that she's inadvertently shown us. So what she got here? She's got recycle bin, the Jackbox Party Pack 7. Don't know what that is. Firefox. So she does use Firefox, not just DuckDuckGo. In fact, I can't see DuckDuckGo on her toolbar. So I'm guessing she uses Firefox and she just references DuckDuckGo. Microsoft Edge, Steam. She plays some games. The Jackbox Party Pack 3. What's the Jackbox Party? I'm such a chuffer. This is me and my detective brain. The Jackbox Party. Oh look, Jackbox Party Pack 8. This is my detective brain. This is because I like finding things out. It's the 8th installment of hilarious games to energize your game night, holiday party, happy hour, or video call. So it's like a video call party pack. Bear in mind she's got multiple copies of. All right, hey you. I'll hey you in a minute. She's got multiple copies of this. She's got the old one and the new one, so she's into this. Maybe it's a thing for her kids. Oh no, it's about drinks.
Tests or reviewed footage or what they were doing, but they really cracked the code on how to make these prompts appear the way that people typically lie in Drawful, rather.
It's a kind of, look, it's an audience participation party thing. Is it a streaming thing or just like a Zoom call thing? It's a party game thing, but it's for adults. It's not about, like, it's a bit adult there. They was talking about drinks and, you know, it's like party games, isn't it? Party games. Bit of a weird thing there. That's what she's into. She likes a bit of that. And Terraria. That's a game, isn't it? About Earth. Dig, fight, explore, build. Nothing's impossible in this action-packed game. Terraria. Sandbox game. 2011. Still on the desktop. Likes a bit of Terraria. We listen to calm, relaxing Nintendo music. There's nothing wrong. I'm not criticising her for this. These are just things she's got on her desktop. I'm not criticising them. She's got Screencast and she's got mod loader as well. What's mod loader? Probably mods for Terraria. She really likes Terraria. Yeah, Terraria mod loader. So she really likes Terraria. She's really into that. And yet she hasn't learned enough about our culture and world. So like, it's surprising to me. I thought Terraria might educate you a little bit about, you know, because terra meaning earth, the ground, isn't it? But no, sadly no. So enough of my little spy game. Now I'm building up more of an impression of our new friend. Because you have to be nice. Listen, you have to be nice to these people. You have to, like, she's confused. Yeah? Isn't she? She's confused. And she homeschools her kids. She puts this information out on the internet. She's getting confused. If she watches our videos, it's a bit late now in the game, 2 hours in. It's a bit late in the game, but I want her to know that I would invite her to my house. I'd sit down with her and talk about these things in a nice way, trying not to be rude. And I know it'd get edgy sometimes when we come up against like these, you know, butting of ideas. But I'd hope that by showing her the logical, critical thinking, by showing her the evidence, I could be helping her. Benefit her life. I don't want to be like, oh, you're stupid, you're an idiot. I want to be like, listen, some people are trying to confuse you and they're probably doing it for their own benefit, not yours. Or they might just be loopy in the head, whatever. At the end of the day, You've got kids. Your life matters. I care about your mental health. Let's show you some truths. Let's give you some tools. Don't be angry at me for doing that. Please don't be angry at me for offering you like help and advice and I'm trying not to be like, yeah, you're an idiot. I'm trying to help you in your life lead a better life in a way. Why? What? Can't you have your seed ideas? Why does it matter? Can't you have your seed ideas? Well, yeah, you can. But you've got kids. You're teaching them. When they grow up, they'll look back and say, Mom, why did you say this when this... Or they might not. They might never learn about physics and geology. Who knows? But let's hope that we can help her kids in some way and the kids of the world by, you know, sharing more positive, good ideas and good foundations for them building on with other ideas. Ideas are really important, and people's lives are a flow of ideas, and then those ideas become their emotions and their feelings and how they reflect on themselves. And I don't want this woman to kill herself and feel bad. You know, overall, I'd like her to come out of it thinking, you know what? I went on the internet with my funny ideas, yeah? And back then, I thought these ideas were really bang and right, and I was really solid on my ideas. And I went on the internet with them, and some people were mean to me, and some people were nice to me, and some people said they agree, and some didn't. But this one set of ideas that I discovered through this whole thing led me to a new form of enlightenment in my life. It led me to question, not just question the narrative, like this video is called Question the Narrative, yeah? This video that she's made, this series, is called Question the Narrative. But to question her own narrative. You know what I'm saying? To question her own narrative. To learn these, to develop, and then maybe, you know, the future could be brighter and she could become a force of good in the world. And then, you know, as we ripple out with our ideas, instead of, because what happens with a lot of these debates online, a lot of these flat earthers or whatever it is, it's like, you're an idiot, you stupid idiot, you idiots. And what they hear is, oh, of course they're saying that because they're all baffled and boggled by the brainwashing, so they think they're the idiots. You're idiots, you're idiots. So it's just two people pointing fingers and shouting idiot at each other. Where's the good? Where's the what? There is something to come out of this, which is that we've got truth, evidences, we can teach. She's doing homeschooling to her kids. We're homeschooling ourselves by learning. Today I learned about Gaudi. Today I learned about termites. Today I learned about this post-pile national monument of structure that was formed from basaltic. I'm not very good at pronouncing words that I've just learned. Basaltic lava. It forms columns because it's rich in iron and magnesium. So I'm learning all sorts of stuff. So I think that's great, and I love it, and it's really good fun. So hopefully she's getting something like that out of this too. And hopefully so are some of the, because hopefully some of the Tartarians who are looking for the conspiracy theory are tuning in. And instead of getting all wound up and angry, hopefully at the end of it, if they listen to avalanche, I don't want an avalanche of idiots. I want us to start subtly melting little snowflakes that as they melt, they touch the next one, it melts them. And before long, we're a flowing river of fluid positivity and ideas and moving toward the future together. Or maybe we're just examples of melted rock. I don't know.
This one here. Now, the problem that I have with this one is how this facade here stayed so spotless.
Yeah, because it was carved into the rock. Right, easy. Yeah, critical thinking is the devil, isn't it? Because if you could think critically, which we're going to do about the Bible in the future, because she's basing a lot of this on Bible. The problem with that is it's dangerous to the church and the institutions, because then you might think critically about some of the things they've mentioned, and it might shake your views on them
in comparison with everything else. But I know that a lot of people do point to this also as evidence of a melted structure. This certainly looks melted. Look at.
It certainly looks melted. It doesn't look as much like a structure as you might think. You know, this could be, because I can see all around, right? All around, what I can see is this sandy. Can you see all around this picture? You can see this sandy dugout almost, sort of with like new pathways. It looks like a lot of pathways in it. This looks to me like the result of what happens quite often is you can have a quarry and then.
You're right, born to kill on your helmet and you wear a peace button. Was that supposed to be some kind of signal?
I think I was trying to suggest something about the duality of man, sir.
Thank you for your tippy snippies. Thank you for your tippy snippies. Before we finish, I'll do a quick tippies check. Thank you. I'll do it now. Why not? Coffee. Buy me a coffee. Thank you for buying me a coffee. I've got to go out walking the dog in a minute. Mudflood insurance, my Mudflood insurance premium in case we get flooded. Thank you very much. Tippies through coffee.com. It means I get a greater percentage of the tippies. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. What happens with the quarry? I just quickly... I said I'm not going to do much more Googling because it's taking so long, this episode. But former quarry art. Former quarry art. You get these places that were originally quarries, become abandoned quarries, and then they use them for like art installations and stuff. Weston-super-Mare quarry art space. Here is one. Here's an example of what I was just talking about. That's within a disused quarry. They built this art space. This is not the Weston-super-Mare one, where this is somewhere in France, this blue one. But that's quite common these days. And I know there's... Look, this one here. An abandoned quarry works on the Langstop. This is the Brecon Beacons. That's an artwork painted of an abandoned quarry. So you can see those shapes in the abandoned quarry, the way it forms that landscape. Yeah? So that's why it makes me think that this image is an abandoned quarry. Because it's got that same landscape and all that sand and you know, where's the rock gone and why have we left with all the sediment and the sand? Because it's like an abandoned quarry. Maybe that was a feature of the abandoned quarry. Maybe this funny carved rock was just like, you know, left there and they cut some little house windows into it and, you know, made a little art feature out of it. Because that's what happens with abandoned quarries. And there is one that looks like... Why can't Google just show me what I want some of these days? I know we've got one in the UK that looks like a woman from the sky. It was an old coal mine. Can't find it on this one, and I don't get to find it. Surprised I can't just easily find that, and it's my brain not being able to remember the name of the place. But we have places like this that are old coal mines, and what they did was, obviously that's a danger to the public, isn't it? You know, a great old coal mine like that in a way. So what they did was they landscaped it up with lovely new landscaping features. So instead of this sort of, you know, coal mined area, they end up with, that's an open cast one. That's a good example. So instead of this sort of open cast mine landscape, what you end up with is they cover it over with grass and stuff. They did this one. It made it look like a woman lying down and you can view it from the sky and you go and walk your dog around it. Landscape art. So I'm binning that off, going back to her. That's what I think that is. But I've got no way of verifying it because she's not showing us what it is or where it is. But I'll tell you what it's not. It's not melted houses. Because the windows would have been melted out. Maybe they put in new windows later on. I don't know.
Shape of these windows, it kind of looks lopsided and everything just looks lopsided. And it just looks like it was almost in a kiln and just was clay and just started melting.
Clay doesn't melt in the kiln. The kiln hardens clay into shape, so that's not how that works. Here we can see, similar to ancient Petra, but this is Buddhist statue, so I'm guessing this is in the Himalayas or India and maybe Thailand, and they've carved out of the rock these that you can tell because you can see that it's carved out of the rock, and you can see some things that are not finished, some things that are unfinished from being carved out of the rock. So that's what that is.
And then we have this one here, which also looks like, and this is just another one of those cases where this stayed, you know, pretty nice. My vocabulary is not working today, but it definitely seems like it was rather untouched if you would compare it to everything else. But this again looks like something that may have melted.
So she thinks that you had a civilization there and someone dropped a huge wad of melted rock on it and it just stopped there up to those statues. They were unaffected. You had steps, of course, because you knew that you were going to need them, because you're going to need have this melted rock around you. What's going on? What do you mean?
And am I ever saying that these things are definitely the case? No, I'm just saying...
No, she's never saying it's definitely the case, because she doesn't want someone like me to critique her. It's a safe, cowardly way to suggest things that are stupid on the internet, isn't it?
Saying that we know that we've been lied to about so many different things, and that...
What? We know we've been lied to about so many different things. I can't unpack that.
It comes to the point that you have to start looking into things yourself.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm suggesting we do. And I'm surprised why you haven't managed to... Well, you can't look into everything yourself because you don't have a degree in geology or history or... You know, I have to refer to what the geologists tell me. You know, when I go and look at this, yeah, and I'm told that it's basaltic lava and it forms columns because it's rich in iron magnesium. I did have a look at look further into the way the chemical composition of the atoms was formed in structures. I looked into that a bit so I can understand that because of chemistry, because I did chemistry at school. So it like rings true with me because I have all these other underpinning ideas that I can refer to. But if you don't, you have to take some of these experts' ideas seriously at some point, because I don't know everything about everything. So rather than trying to say, okay, I'm not going to trust anyone, I'll just learn everything about everything myself. That's impossible. We work on the work that other people have done. The greatest scientific discoveries are based on the scientific discoveries of other people. They didn't sit down and say, right, today I'm going to develop the microchip. Let's go. Someone had to work with silicon first, and we had to do this first and that first, and transistors, and then somebody that knows all this stuff because other people have taught it them and learned it and developed it. They say, okay, I'll take that as fact. I'll learn it. Yeah, okay, it makes logical sense. I understand it. I can understand it. I can do the mechanics. I can work it reverse and forward. Now I've got a new idea. What about this? So that's how that works. You can't just learn everything yourself and be the font of all knowledge. You do have to trust and rely on other people who are educated and education. So...
because we're not going to be told the truth by at least the people in charge, are we?
I don't know why the people in charge would want to lie to you about that particular thing, about the people in charge. I don't know, whoever you elect this year or whatever, I don't know why they are interested as to whether God bombed rocks on you.
So I did also go on Google Earth.
Google Earth, perfect.
Just to show that we have these craters here, and I talked about these in another video, but we have...
Okay, I'm not going to listen to the craters thing because it looks like a new thing that I've got to learn loads more stuff about in order to debunk, and I'm not doing that right now because I've done so much.
Mudflood building caused by soil liquefaction from the Great Earthquake, and it could have been from the War of Gog and Magog, and once the Lord returns, that's going to be the end of Satan. But...
oh, adverts. Obviously, God doesn't mind advertising, does he? She, they. God could be a she or a they.
We have this time now.
Oh, look, there's a cellar being dug out.
But anyway, so we have some evidence of what looked to be mud flood buildings, buried buildings. If you've ever watched the news footage in earthquake ravaged areas, you will see that a lot of times there are half buried buildings. Some of them are crooked. And
if you've ever watched the news from an earthquake ravaged area, you'll see some half buried buildings and some of them are crooked. Absolutely.
And what we are finding is that this right here looks like they excavated and found some buildings under.
No, they didn't excavate and find. You're confused. This is modern building. They knew they were there already. They don't just dug. Oh, look, turns out there's some buildings down here. I'm glad we didn't build a house on this plot. No, they're about to do building work, so they're excavating the existing structure, which they've probably demolished a building here. There was probably a building already here. They've demolished it, and they're excavating the foundations to possibly... it looks like there's a load of new sand. That lorry has just... They're not... How stupid can you be? I'm sorry, I don't want to be rude to this woman, but they're not excavating that sand. They're putting that sand in. And you can see, because there's a big lorry there that's a delivery lorry, and some of the sand is on the side. You know what? They might be excavating it, though. It's possible they're excavating it, because it could be this cellar fell into disrepair. This foundation was used as a foundation. They dumped a load of fresh-looking builder sand into it, and now we're going to excavate it and renovate it and put a new building on top. You know, we have listed buildings in the UK, so you don't just demolish everything you find. But it could be this, could be that. There's lots of reasons. I can see somebody doing something with the brickwork there. There's somebody stood in the place with a shovel. The fact that someone stood in the cellar with a shovel makes me think they're putting the sand in, because he's going to be there to make sure that can be moved around. He's not going to be piling up the sand in the corner with a shovel, is he? He's not been doing that. That looks like fresh building sand going into what was previously a cellar or a foundation layer, and they're going to maybe lay some flooring and use that sand for the building project they're about to go ahead with. I mean, it's just construction. I would argue that shows you nothing about mud flooding and proof of. And if it did, then what you're saying is that bottom floor would be the first floor, originally the first floor. So where's the front door? Where's the kitchen? Where's the living room? Why is everything not laid out on that first floor like a first floor building? Why does it look much more like a basement or a cellar? Why is it not designed to be a first floor? Very high heat has a tendency to cause fracturing of masonry, and timber joints would burn reduced. All right, that's really interesting as well. Yeah, loads of reasons. Like, if you knew a bit about construction, you'd be more educated, wouldn't you? And because I only know a little rough bit about construction, I didn't do a degree in it or anything. It's one of the reasons we spend so much time fire protecting buildings. Well, there you go. That's very interesting. Yeah. You'd be able to, talk about this, but to be a layperson and just to look at a photo like that and say, right, that photo, I'm going to veer on the side of mud flood. That seems really weird to go that route, doesn't it?
Underneath possibly could have been tunnels as well.
Tunnels? You can't have it both ways. If it's tunnels, it's just at surface level. Look, they've only just dug the surface level off and there, bang, it's there. So it's not tunnels, it was previously a building. If it is tunnels, it's tunnels through nothing, because there was a mudslide. So what did the mudslide onto? Into your tunnels? No, the tunnels were on surface level, weren't they? This is supposed to be... You said it was mud flood. Oh, I'm so confused. Oh, you're a building control surveyor. Right, you're in the right game. You're going to know more about this than our friend here, the homeschooler.
This right here, it looks like they excavated and found some buildings underneath. Possibly could have been tunnels as well. And if there were an earthquake, and
so this is not a photograph, I'll have you know. This is an artist's. Is it a photograph? There's cars in it. It looks, the detail on it. There's something about the detail. It makes me feel it's rendered. It might be painted by artist's brush. Sometimes they paint little people in the frame. When they're doing an artist's impression of something. What it'll look like when they build it. Or this could be a really nice photo. It certainly looks like it's been through some sort of processing, doesn't it? It's got the English flag, the British flag, the English flag, and then it's got all different flags at the front. This must be some sort of hotel or... this looks like London. It looks like London. I'm doing a geoguesser now. It could either be like... Because this tree-lined avenue in front, those all look like new, fresh trees, and they look very similar height and age. So it makes me feel that this light area in the front of these, like these old buildings have been there for a long time, but the area in front of it looks like it might have recently been cleared or designed or whatever. Maybe it's a renovation happening to a part of the city, and that's an artist's impression as to what it will look like in front of these buildings once it's done. Or maybe it's an actual photograph, a very perfect looking photograph. It's a very nice photograph if it is. Quite happy with it being a photograph if it is. Right, David's got experience dealing with fire protection and looking at excavations in the mud floor layer, mud floor in inverted commas, and he hasn't seen any of it yet. So there's somebody who actually works in the direct experience with it, not encountering it. But fortunately, there's someone in America who's got the internet, so they know a little bit better than you. Thankfully, they're here to educate us. I don't know what this picture's supposed to show us. I can't see any evidence of anything untoward there.
soil liquefaction did occur. Yes, the lower half of doors and windows would have been buried. So the theory is that after that happened, that would be the third reset.
Oh, look, that lower... She's saying that because that first floor... You see where the steps go up into the building? That's the first floor, but they've got like a basement layer, and it's got that little built rail around it, and it seems to be sunk into the floor. It could be that we've raised street level over the years. That could be the case. We've raised street level, but it's more likely that they just built, they dug out the foundations and built a sort of semi-basement layer on the building, because back then it was easier to dig down than it was to go up and build high, tall buildings, because these are, older structures, aren't they? So They're not skyscrapers or anything like that. They might have just dug a big cellar layer and just put a wall around it, like they did with buildings.
And people...
Or it could have sunk down into the mud by about 3 foot and no one's noticed.
Came, dug it out, and basically called those buildings their own. And, you know, people ask, why would they hide it?
Wait, so now someone came and found these buildings and dug them out. Sorry to spoil your disillusion, your illusion. Sorry to shatter your illusion, my love. But all of the buildings in London can be accounted for architecturally through records and planning. London burned down in 1666. It burned down. And after that, when they put up the new buildings, we had pens and paper and municipal planning and all that. So this can be... I don't know which building it is because you haven't told me. But if you tell me what it is, I'll be able to show you the original architect's plans and blueprints. I'll be able to take you through the history of the build. So it wasn't discovered and uncovered.
Well, if there were evidence that Christ had already reigned for 1,000 years, would if you were one of the bad guys, wouldn't you want to hide that as well?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anyway, the reason
It's the devil. The devil's pretending to you that was built in history. They faked the history to fake the fact that Jesus has already been. Because, so what? What does it matter if Jesus has already been and you're the bad guys? Why do you need to fake it to the people? I don't understand. Jesus is gone. It doesn't matter. We missed him.
I have this building here, this beautiful building, and as you can see, we've got what look to be like, they look like mudflood windows here. Looks like a door there also.
Oh yeah.
Now, that's not always the case. I know that there are some newer buildings where they will put in a basement window. But when...
These are not newer buildings. This is that American confusion. Sorry to the Americans on the audience. I'm not dissing all Americans. I'm saying there is a little bit of a sort of... like you grow up in a world that's all new. That's all been built in post-1800. So you feel like the old stuff in your world that you see regularly, the old stuff is 1800 old. But to us in Europe, that's not old. We go back a lot further. So to us, the old stuff is like the Elizabethan, before then. I'm not talking current Elizabeth. I'm talking Tudor times. We go back further than that. We've got prehistoric. We've got Stonehenge. We've got all that. So we look at buildings like this and think of them as being fairly modern, really. Fairly modern in the big picture, but you're looking at this as an American lady, the lady that's doing the video, and saying that's an old building. Maybe it's been around since Jesus.
And you can see these older buildings being excavated, and you see that they have doors that are 6 feet under the ground. It's not the case. So this actually was a great photo that I found. It's on hyacinthresearch.com.
We're going to have to go into where that photo comes from another time, but that could be a wonky photo. In fact, it definitely is a bit of a wonky photo. It could be a hill. The house could be straight and we could be looking at it a bit wonky, or it could be a subsidence, or, there's so many reasons why that could look like that. And it's not necessarily evidence that this big mud flood happened, is it? It's just an old, funny photo. It's a screenshot of an old photo because you can see there's a cursor in the middle. That's not an architectural feature. That's a mouse cursor.
And this certainly looks to me like something being dug out.
No, remember at the very start, I showed us... where's my image of the building? Mud-covered buildings. I'll just put The Sun, because it was in the newspaper, The Sun. Come on. This is a newspaper article. This is a photograph of modern houses being built. The modern houses have got all mud outside them because they have finished building the houses, and then the last thing they do is the road. And these residents are fed up because they, haven't finished the road yet. Yeah. Simple concept. And that's what's happening in these pictures. It's just a long time ago. They're building it. They haven't done a good road because they didn't even have good roads. They had horses and carts and rubbish roads. It's got mud piled up around it because they're doing mud building around it. getting too easy.
Here we also have another image of, we have the muddy streets and these lower
We have muddy
level-
streets. This could be, I mean, how do I determine where this is in the world when it is? Just because it's black and white doesn't make it old. I can take any photograph and make it look black and white. But we didn't used to have, I mean, the Romans had paved, well not paved, cobbled streets. Yeah, the Romans had them. And we've had them ever since. But in a lot of places, they had horses and carts as the main, you know, have you ever played Red Dead Redemption? You ever seen the movies of the Wild West? You ever seen the movies of the Wild West? They didn't have like highways and tarmac roads, did they? That came a bit later. Until then, they used to go with this sort of rougher, sort of muddier, dirtier look. David suspects the one picture comes from the Renegade projects in the US, but not worked out which ones yet. That one's just a slope. Yeah, I knew it. A sloping site. I knew it. Like, you can tilt the camera on the wonk and you can make it look like anything, can't you?
windows.
This one's, yeah, the window. Oh, sorry, I see what you mean by sloping site as well. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean now. Sorry, I'm being ignorant myself there. Look, the windows, yeah, the street's sloping, so you've built into the slope. You built your building straight, so you're forced to sort of go into the hill a bit. Yeah, I get what you're saying there as
Lower
well.
level windows.
Yeah.
Here's a modern day building, and I have to say, well, I shouldn't say modern day building.
Well, it is a modern day building, isn't it? It's got breeze blocks and bricks, and it's got something propping it up there because it's obviously suffering with subsidence. You can actually see in this photograph that at the very right hand side, my face is in the way, I'll just shift the browser a little bit. At the very right hand side, you can see the tarmac street level around it, and you can see that the building is sitting about 4 or 5 bricks lower than the tarmac street level. Now, you would always put a damp course in British building, even, you know, brick building at the time, even if it's not got a great big cellar, you put a damp course of a few bricks. I know that. I've done a little bit of DIY and construction. But this building looks like it's sinking down into the ground, maybe through some sort of subsidence. And that's indicative because there's some yellow thing holding it up, propping it up, that looks like. And you can still see that even with all that, there's no mud. Like, there's no... Like, if it was covered in mud and sinking down through it, there's no mud for it to sink into. Next to it is concrete and tarmac and...
I should say a modern day photo. The one that I just showed you was, you know, clearly older.
Why is that clearly older? Okay, the reason it's clearly older as a detective is, well, she's dressed in old worldly clothes. You've got power lines that don't look like modern power lines. The road is muddy. So that's from an old... But I could build a brand new film set today and take that photograph with an actress, couldn't I? And then, why is it old? Because it's in black and white. It looks old. There's no evidence to suggest that is old, other than our instinctive feelings about the evidence that were presented. But
this was taken probably recently, and I could take pictures of this all over my...
I like the way David can judge. Exactly, it's pre-30s, judging by the brick header courses, the block work. Like, it's if you know a bit about architecture and building techniques, then yeah, you'll be able to date these very much more accurately.
My town, there are so many buildings that look like this, and I've actually done videos showing this. But yeah, we have half-buried doors.
And Angie says that the old videos on YouTube of early San Francisco's dirt roads. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? San Francisco, big hills, buildings, dirt roads. That makes sense. That sounds about right. New World.
Half-buried windows. And,
half.
You know.
Well, those are half breeze blocked up shapes. They could be windows. They could not. I don't know. You know, we could find out though, because we could get the blueprints for that building if we want.
Oh, could that be reset 3?
No.
I believe that there's a very good possibility that it could be.
No, you can't be.
So again, you know, we go back to the idea that reset 1 was the flood. That would be the underwater buildings and some of the other buildings, especially the more grand structures that we see today.
So it doesn't make sense though, does it? Because the world was flooded, and then obviously the flood went away because we're here. But some of it was still flooded. Why didn't it go away for them as well? Why did some of them stay flooded forever? I don't know. If we're not explaining it with, sea levels and global warming and ice caps and that, if we're not explaining it with that, if we're explaining it with the God thing, why was God so mean to those populaces that were on the very coastlines? Why were the people living on the coastlines in such bad favour with God?
I also have to add, especially if you look at a lot of the castles that have the huge doorways, and not even just castles, but a lot of older buildings had huge doorways. And there is a theory that pre-flood antediluvian era, not only were there giants, but that the people, the humans in general, were taller in those days.
If that were the case, if we had giant buildings with great big doorways, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Some buildings have big doors on the front, don't they? Especially the castles. Well, the castles had other things to get through those doors. They may not be the actual front door. But also, if that's what we're saying, if they're giants, why was the interior of the building not laid out for giants? Why wasn't the entire building giant? Why wasn't it built big? Because they would have been giants. So their bricks would have been bigger. Their hands would have been holding bigger bricks. They'd have built things taller. Their tables would have been bigger. Their chairs would have been bigger. Like the doorways, interior doorways would have all been bigger. They would have been painted bigger comparative to the foliage and the trees on paintings, wouldn't they? All our images of humans would have looked bigger, wouldn't they? She's talking about pre-biblical flood though. So she's saying about a race of humans, not that we... Not I'm suggesting, no. She's saying that castles... She was saying castles... Wait, we've got to get this right because I'm not being mean to her.
And there is a theory that pre-flood antediluvian era not...
Pre-flood antediluvian era... Pre-flood antediluvian... Right, so she's saying this is before in the Bible, between the fall of man and the Genesis flood narrative. So this is like real early Bible stuff. Like we're talking like BC, way off BC, yeah? Talking way off BC, early flood. If that happened, we're also saying the castles with the big doors were built before then, during that. You can't have them both. You can either have giants in the past... Fine, you can have them, antediluvian, but you can't tell me that modern castles, like, from the 1700s and the 1600s and the 1400s, you can't tell me that post BC, BC onwards, things that were built with big doors mean that we had... Mind blown. How come the mud flood killed the giants? Yeah, they could keep their heads above the mud flood. Yes, it wouldn't have even been so bad for them. They wouldn't have had the buildings come up to there with the mud because they'd have built them bigger. Because they were giants. They wouldn't have had... Everything would have been bigger. All the things we find of theirs would have been bigger. And all their problems would have been, therefore, relatively smaller. We'd at least find the odd big hat.
Not only were there giants, but that the people, the humans in general, were taller in those days.
Humans have been taller in the past. She thinks she's clever here, but she's not. Human... height over time fluctuates between taller and shorter, and it just goes in a wave. Human height over time. They like to show us getting taller. They like to suggest that we're getting taller, like average heights are getting taller. But honestly, if you look at it over a long period of time. I'm looking for one that looks like the wave and I can't find one. I think in modern history, the last 1,000 years, we've got taller. 1820 to 2013, we've got taller. 1896 to 1996, we've got taller. But I know from previous learning, just trust me, I can't find the graph, and I'm not going to because it's like we've been doing this for nearly 3 hours now. But I know from previous learning that over the course of history, humans have got taller and shorter in a sort of wave pattern. And we go through phases of evolving and evolving. Not evolving and devolving, but evolving and further evolving, taller and shorter in a wave pattern. It's just one of those things. I think it was one of those questions on QI.
So it would make sense that some of those grander structures would have been in the antediluvian era before Reset 1, before that flood. And then again, we would have Reset 2, which would have been a time of the melted structures.
So she's confused because she said that we were digging these things out and then living in them. But then they've been melted as well afterwards. So you can't have it both ways. That picture of the flooded world has a tree in it. That picture of the flooded world has it. That's not taken underwater. That's fake. It's got a tree in it.
I have everything.
That's someone's fish tank.
Like, it's not even in order, and I don't know why. Okay, so that would be the time period, the reset, when there were melted structures and heat coming from above, and that certainly would tie in with Armageddon were it to have occurred. And then we have reset 3, the one that I just spoke of.
I like the way it's always general as well. We've just got this one and that one. There's no dates. There's no carbon dating. There's no like suggested timeline other than it's just a bit, you know, come on. It's this and that. Giants installed. That's true. Giants installed the cabinets in your house. Giants set up the supermarket shelves, didn't they? Giants did, so you can't get the things off the top. That's proof.
And
the light. How can anyone fit a light bulb? Giants. Look how high my ceilings are. In Victorians. I can't believe I nearly done 3 hours on this, but I'm still doing it. Look, Victorian ceilings, right? Victorian ceilings. In Victorian houses, they had tall. Look at this. Look at this. Look how tall the building is. Look how high the room goes. In Victorian houses in the UK, there was a fashion for high ceilings. If you believe it, you will believe it. I'm telling you. I'm showing you pictures of it. High ceilings. You can go on Rightmove and go and look around the houses. The Victorian ones up the road, they've got high ceilings. In Edgbaston in Birmingham, they've got high ceilings like that. That's a North London house, but it reminds me of Edgbaston in Birmingham. I've got friends that live there. Big high ceilings. It was a fashion trend amongst the people that could afford to build nice houses. We'll have high ceilings, please. It doesn't mean they were giants. And we know that they weren't giants because we've got photographic and, other forms of evidence of what, we can physically dig them up if you want. They weren't giants, but they did have tall ceilings. So where does that leave you? That could be a castle.
Soil liquefaction, half-buried buildings, and a new populace came, dug everything out, and said, hey, we're going to claim these buildings for our own, and, we're going to rewrite history because we don't want the truth to be known.
No.
So, anyway.
And that would have to happen all over the world, and no whistleblowers. Nobody was like, you know what, I don't care if you want it to be known. I'll tell the truth. I'll write it all down. Why does it matter if we dug them out? Oh, because we're the baddies and the devil and Jesus. We're hiding it from Jesus.
That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that.
I am going to listen to everything you say, love, because I think it makes good content. We've done nearly 3 hours of this today. I like to keep them to shorter episodes. I like to keep them to sort of hour and a half episodes because I think that you, my beautiful you, my beautiful you, I think that it's a bit much for you to listen to 3 hours of me chuffing on. But if you like it, if you're still here right now, please throw me a like. Please throw me a subscribe. Check in with the streams. We do a lot of variety. We do a lot of mixing it up, a lot of different stuff. So if it's something you're not liking, don't worry. There'll be something you like. Okay? Don't get cross. Don't get funny. Don't get shirty. If there's something you're not liking, there'll be something you like. So I hope I've done a good job today. I hope we've shone some light around the world. And I hope we've had some fun. And now I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to go and shine my light around the woods. So shine my light. I'm just walking the dog. Frankly. I might come across some structures that I photographed that look a little bit like melted castles and start my own theory. So you be good, my little puckos. You be good. And if you can't be good, then I'm going to drop molten lava on you from the sky and it's your fault.